Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting of Monday, June 24th, 2013. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Clerk.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will announce the agenda. We are going to go next into read mail at 7:10. We're going to go to our public input and our member updates. At 7:20, we're scheduled to hear about the collective bargaining updates for police and fire. At 7:30, we are going to start our selectmen goals, and it'll be the preliminary goal setting exercise. 8:55, we have other business. Mr. Bergman.
Mr. Chairman, just a few items under mail. One is that we have received a feasibility study for a regional emergency communications center involving the towns of Boxborough and Littleton. This is actually the result of a grant-funded study that the board voted to request some months ago. The study's been completed. There's a meeting that's being held in Boxborough tomorrow night that some of us will be attending, where the consultant will make a presentation. Boxborough had asked for the study. The proposal was to look at having a joint facility located in Littleton. Bottom line is that it's not financially feasible to do so, largely because it would cost us more money to do it together than it would separately, in part because of the redundancies that you have to establish. But it was an excellent study done, full participation from our police and fire administrations and the finance department, and sadly it is not financially feasible, but we'll have more information to report on that and be glad to answer any questions about it. The other item that I wanted to mention is we actually got this late this afternoon, and it is the approval from the Attorney General of several of the bylaws that were passed by our town meeting last month. That the zoning bylaw dealing with open space development was approved. The bylaw amendment allowing the Conservation Commission to adopt rules and regulations subject to your approval was approved. The bylaw establishing the appointing authority for the Director of Elder and Human Services as the town administrator with the Selectmen and Council on Aging's approval was approved. What has not yet been acted on, but we are confident will be approved, is the temporary moratorium on medical marijuana. There are two different staff people in the Attorney General's office who are doing the reviews, and we will be hearing shortly with the determination on the moratorium. Since we copied that bylaw exactly, word for word, from a bylaw in Burlington that the AG had approved, we're confident this one will get approved too. But I did want to note that it's barely a month and a half after town meeting. This is one of the quickest turnarounds that we've had. The AG has 90 days to act after receiving the package, and this is one of the quickest turnarounds we've seen. And so thanks to the town clerk, Diane Crory, for getting the information in promptly, which allowed it to get approved promptly. And that's it.
Okay. All right, with nothing else for mail, I will go to public input. Is there anyone else there who wants to be heard now? We're going to have public input on goals later, so it's probably more, if that's your input, probably wait until then. But anything else? Okay, hearing none, I'll move to board member updates. Alex, do you have anything?
The only thing I have is that we received an email, and the person who sent it asked for it to be read into the record at the next meeting.
I believe that that's
I don't know how
Mr.
you want to-
Tarbox's. I have it right here. I'll read it if you, unless you object to that, unless you want to take that.
There's a request for it, and how you want to handle it is up to you.
I plan on reading it, so it's fine unless you want to. Joe?
I have two things I want to mention. First was we had a very successful third Thursday. This is the second year that we've been doing it. Some changes. It was all held on one side of the common. Helped out some of the traffic, not all the traffic problems. It certainly helped out some of them. But once again, it was a great community event. I think we had around 60 different booths for vendors and whatnot. And I think the attendance was about what it was last year. So for June is usually the smallest one, and July and August gets bigger, so we expect it to get bigger. The second thing, I just want to point out that, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before, at Littleton Depot, we had a group of people who volunteered to go down to the depot area and clean up. And it was a great community event. People volunteering on their own to try to clean up, and it's only phase one. There were 12 people. My brother, my sister-in-law, Johnny and Janice Knox were the ones that did all the phone calling. They actually called 13 people, and 12 came down. Other people involved were Bob McCrae, Bob and Paula Long, Darrell and Ann Louise Payson, myself, Gino Fradloni, Ann Lawrence, Dave Erickson, who owns the building itself. Okay. He had some equipment there that helped out, and we took everything to the transfer station. My brother Peter Knox and Deb Rawson was there. And the next step is we're trying to work it so we have a private contractor coming down to take a look at the next step, to maybe to get rid of all the tree stumps, and break it up, and he could get it raked out so we could have the garden club come in at that point and just make up that area look well. It's something that was in my goals a couple of years ago to have it ready for the 300th anniversary, and I think it's finally going to go true. But once again, it's a community event that could happen in other parts of town too, if people get together. So it's nice to see things like that happen. We've all done within 4 hours, and then thank Fallon's liquor store also for supplying all the water. So.
Oh, yes. I was stopping there. I was going to cut you off there. Yeah. Okay, Jen, you got anything?
I just wanted to let people know that we're having our Littleton Townwide Picnic on the 4th of July at Fay Park. It starts at noon. We're going to be singing the Star Spangled Banner, followed by some comments from me. I'll say something patriotic, I'm sure. And if it turns out that it rains, we'll skip the picnicking portion, but the concert will begin at 1 at First Church Unitarian. So I would invite people to come enjoy community together.
Thanks.
I'm good.
You're good?
I do have one other thing.
Yeah.
that Joe brought it up. I happened to go to the meeting of the 300th committee in its entirety. And what a great group of people that was. They are doing a lot of work, and there's a report from each one of the subgroups, subcommittees, and subcommittees of the subcommittees, and all of that. And, it's really coming together nicely, and I think that committee deserves some credit for putting together a pretty complex celebration, and how far along they are at this stage of the game. I was very impressed with it.
Joe, I have the 300th on here too, and I owe you an apology for missing that meeting. I didn't have it on my calendar and I missed it, but I'm wondering, I heard there was a great presentation, not only from Alex, but I didn't know if there was anything that the 300th committee would like to bring here and possibly get a little further reach, so I want to invite them out if you want to talk to them and see if they want to come down here and do anything.
I can certainly do that. I go to all the meetings. The only meeting I'll miss is the next one coming up.
Yeah.
But they are having another presentation just like the one Alex did in November. So
Okay.
right before the
All
year
right.
starts, it'll be a full update of what's going on. And just like Alex said, there's 5 major events and there's small events inside those.
Yeah.
And it is complex. It has been time consuming, but it's a fun type of committee because you're always going for something very, very positive from
Yeah.
town and a great celebration. So I think it's going to be that way.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Just one quick comment to Joe on third Thursday. Parking's a little tricky because there really aren't that many spaces. And like I ended up parking over by the auto parts store on public land, and I'm not quite sure, where you're supposed to park and where you aren't.
I parked at the library and walked down. It was 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. As I said to Alex, I do have an email here that was sent by Brian Tarbox, who asked to have it read, and I'll go ahead and do that now, and I'll read it verbatim. It says, Keith, I'd like to file a complaint about the behavior of the Board of Selectmen chairman at last week's meeting. He acted with arrogance and disrespect to the public, and his behavior reflects badly upon the entire board. His actions are also likely in violation of the board's code of conduct. I don't know the name of the man who Chairman Doucette yelled at, but he deserves an apology. That man was only paraphrasing Chairman Doucette's the chairman's own comments about meeting times being approximate and changing, he does not deserve the attack that the chairman unleashed upon him. The board continues to state that it wants to encourage and promote citizen participation, yet its actions convey the opposite. Why should any citizen possibly attend a meeting if they may be subject to behavior of a bully? The recent election shows that residents are demanding better behavior from our elected officials, and one way or another we will get it. The board appears to have no process that I'm aware of for filing complaints, and no sanctions are listed, so even filing a complaint seems a bit pointless. Nonetheless, I'd ask that the email be read into the record at the next meeting. Thank you, Brian Tarbox. My response to that is that and I reviewed the tape a couple of times, and I disagree with the words that were used here and the characterization of my actions as far as saying arrogance, attack unleashed, and the fact that I was called a bully. I disagree with those things. And I'd like to go on by saying that, you know, it's going to be hard not to use Brian. I did want to say something before this email came in. I was on a bike ride and I was trying to phrase what I wanted to say. And we can't have town officials attacking each other in public. You know, if Brian felt this way, and this goes for anybody, you know, I really would have appreciated a call. This is fine. I have no problem putting this out there. But, you know, this kind of thing being read in public when we have guests here, it just doesn't look good for the public to be bickering like this. And I also like to address a little something about social media. There's a lot, we hear it's becoming problems in a lot of towns, and, you know, for public officials, we can't be making posts against each other, and the lines are blurred when we are public officials and we have our own pages as well, that, you know, we post our own, everything comes from the public, and I just don't know that, you know, who's going to want to do business with a town that is bickering like that. And for our business partners, we really don't want to see them, have them see us bickering like this and acting like we can't get along. So, you know, I definitely disagree with people on this board and other boards, but I have never, and I never will, post anything negative or attack anybody on social media. And I hope that this board and other boards will follow that. And I think there's something else as far as discussing this about the social media with other members of boards. I realize that without tone and without voice inflection, things can get misinterpreted, so you have to be very careful about that. And I think making phone calls will be better than making attacks like, or making comments like that and sending emails like this, because if this is meant to get somebody want to work with somebody, I don't see how that happens. And if making comments on social media and things like that are to get people to work together, I don't see how it's going to happen. So those are my comments. I'll open up to the board if they have anything else, and if not, we'll move on to 7:20.
I just have one comment, Mr. Chair. The respect the public expect from us, they should see it the reverse side of it also. They should respect us also. And we get a lot of arrogance coming from the public sometimes, and that in itself instigates some type of negative behavior. So I think if the public that sit in our meetings can be respectful, I'm sure, and I know that this board will react the same way. So it's a two-way street.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else?
I would like to make a comment. I believe it is our role to be the ones that others should follow. If respect is going to be conveyed by the public, we have to convey the respect first. We have to earn that respect. And we do have some work that needs to be done in that way. But that cannot be done at the cost of being able to disagree with one another, which is part and partial to the deliberation process. That's why there are 5 of us here. And I would hope we disagree about a lot of things, and I would hope that we work our way through it. And sometimes it's going to get spirited, no question about it. We're very different people. But it is part of the process. Simple being quiet is not the answer. Acting in a manner of respectful debate and deliberation is our responsibility. But I don't think we should shy away from disagreeing with one another.
Just quickly, I don't think when he said shy away from disagreement, when you're in a public forum like this, you're always going to have disagreements, and that's fine. I don't want to put words in it, I think you were talking about the way it's done, because, you know, I'm gonna disagree with some of it. We're all different people, we're gonna have different views on things, and that's fine, it's just how it's portrayed sometimes.
Yourself, Jen? Everyone else has spoken, would you like anything?
I think people know that I'm here as an endorser of civility and collaboration and cooperation, and just at our last meeting, Mr. Carr wanted to educate me as to what my role is on this board, and I found that really hard to listen to. And I certainly seek the guidance of the four men at this table who have been here at this table, but I'm a peer to you. I'm a peer to all of you, and I expect that we respect one another in a healthy and positive way. I want us to set, as Alex said, I want us to set the example, and I think we can do that. It's just a matter of practice, and we can get there.
Okay. Mr. Spohn?
Thank you, Chris Simone, Story Road. I'm not sure the reference to the social media, Selectman Doucette, it must be something that was referenced that I hadn't read, but with respect to the letter that was read in the last meeting, I mean, I honestly came away from that meeting disappointed because there was a new tone, kind of, or the hope of a new tone set. You've just kind of said it yourself, which is great. Very, very good. But that didn't happen in the last meeting. And, just more of a mutual respect. It does have to go both ways. But I would ask that it extend to the subcommittees and committees and boards that you all might sit on as well. There are two instances where the SOAR committee, for instance, has had discussion over the last two meetings of citizens who opposed, and my name has come up twice. And the things that have been said have been not terribly disparaging, but not really appropriate, and there are some people felt as though it was kind of a character assault. And opposition is a good thing. There are no ethics or rules or principles being violated, quite the contrary. I would ask that civility be extended to all of the rooms in which you sit on boards, and to citizens whether or not they're in the room. These things are recorded, we all have reputations, we're all working hard for our Littleton. The third point I'd like to raise is with respect to a very difficult situation that happened, but to Selectman Carr's point about mutual respect, I've struggled with how to address this point, but it seems like this evening, based upon the favorable tone you've set, which again I appreciate very much, is the place to kind of get this out on the table. There was an incident following the Selectmen meeting on April 8th where Selectman Carr, by what I and others felt, really was extremely aggressive. He followed us out in the parking lot, me in
You are
particular.
absolutely wrong. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to argue,
You
Mr.
haven't heard what I
Simone.
have to say, Selectman Carr. I'm being really polite about it. I intend to just...
Yeah, go, yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I'll let the board decide what to do with this, if anything, and maybe it's nothing. So here's what happened. I was outside with, I can do this in two
No,
minutes.
if you have, we're trying to set the tone of moving on and things. If you have a specific complaint with specifics of violations of anything, code of conduct, ethics law, anything like that, please put it in writing, send it to me, Keith, and we'll get it to the whole
Thank you.
board. I just don't think airing grievances
Yep.
right now are the point. We want to move on, and we're going to go on to
Just to
collective
close
bargaining
out then,
updates.
I will put in
And we'd
writing.
like to, I'd like...
May I finish?
No.
I will
No,
put it- I
no,
will put
I've...
it in writing, and I'll ask that it be read at the opening of the mail then. I think that'll take more time. And it was an attack in the parking lot of this meeting that was exactly 100% perpetrated by Selectman Carr. There were witnesses, and it was egregious behavior that our founding fathers would never
Okay.
accept.
You this is what it is about respect. You just said there needs to be mutual respect. I said we were done with the topic, and I said I didn't want hearing anything, and then you went on to say that Mr. Carr attacked, and you made other things.
And I can't sit
And that
down.
is disrespectful to go against, when we're trying to move on. And I asked you not to air grievances, or I gave you a method to air grievances, but you still had to go on, and that's what I find is disrespectful. So, now I'm going to try again to move on to collective bargaining. I'd like to start with the police union contract. So, what we have here is a consolidation of previous contracts. Over the past several years, since about 2009, we have been going ahead and having, basically doing amendments of contracts, amendments and changing things. What this does here is it will codify everything into one document. So it's really just an editing exercise and gets all the recent contracts into one large document. Keith, do you have anything to add?
That's correct, that the town and the union agreed last November in our latest round of bargaining that following ratification of the most recent contract, we would take the time and go through those past several documents, produce an authoritative, codified, single document which contains the current language. We've completed that review. The police union have approved it, and we're ready to have it executed tonight. There's no substantive changes that have been made from anything that the Board of Selectmen has already signed. It's for the police in this one and the fire department in the next agenda item. We're codifying the contract so we have a common baseline
So
document.
we can take 3A and 3B along together with, I believe, with any type of discussion that we want to have, because they're both, there's no reason to take these separately. I mean, you're saying they're both the same thing. We're just
You're
putting
both-
these together, rewriting and editing.
Yes, that in our separate bargaining with each of our unions, we agreed to do this consolidated contract. So there are two separate motions, one for the police and one for the fire union contracts, but the procedure is identical, that we've codified documents, it's been approved by the unions, and it's being brought to the selectmen for execution.
Okay.
I have a question. Do we have any other unions that with the consolidation has to be completed?
Yes, that the police dispatch contract will be the next thing that we bring you for consolidation, and I'm hoping we may even bring you a highway contract, but we will have further action at our next meeting.
Okay. I heard,
You-
it's
you
throat
heard-
clearing, I thought you were
heard-
going.
Yeah,
I
no,
thought
I
you were
heard
getting
some.
ready
No,
to-
I'm not,
wind
I
it
have a
up.
quick question.
Yeah.
Because I happen to be trained as an attorney, reading contracts is something I like to do on occasion. And I noticed in the fireman's contract, and Mr. Chief Wodzinski had mentioned the fitness room at the firehouse. There seems to be under safety and health, a specific section 3 provision that all employees are offered 60 minutes of physical training and they shall be allowed to participate. If they want to go for a run or a bike ride, that's just as good. And yet in the police, it's suspiciously absent.
I would welcome that, Ms. Bronson. If you want to sit back at negotiations and go through the contract again.
No, I'm not saying we should necessarily do that, but there seems to be no allotment for fitness nor an encouragement of it.
So I can speak to that if you'd like.
Yeah, sure, yeah, we built a fitness center.
Yeah, we
in the
did.
new police
And I think I guess I can speak for it, but in town here, we only have 2 officers on at a time sometimes.
Yeah.
So if the contract's gonna allow us to work out for 60 minutes during our scheduled 8 hours, that leaves 1 officer on the road at a time, which puts the town in jeopardy. So I believe that's the sole reason right now why it's not in there. Believe me, I can guarantee you, everybody in my union would agree to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
You-
did
if
you
the
say
select
that
board would like to do that.
you have a fitness
Don't
center
consider
at
that
the
a
police
component.
station? So people, officers could come in prior to a shift and
And they do,
Yeah.
prior to.
pump iron?
And the union participated in procuring some of the equipment.
We paid for 3/4 of it, I
Yeah.
believe.
The union did.
The union
Yeah.
equipment, yeah.
The equipment that's available
It was built in.
for the employees' use at the police station, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're just
Thank
like
you.
IBM, you know, that they have.
Yeah, that's- yeah, you know what?
And better when I'm.
I don't need to do it on work, have it at my office would be huge. Yeah. Okay,
Ready?
I'm ready.
All right, we'll move that the Board of Selectmen vote to execute the Consolidated Collective Bargaining Agreement, CBA, for the Massachusetts Coalition of Police, Local 204, Littleton Police, which contains provisions of the 2006 through 2009 CBA, as modified by the 2009 through 2012 Memorandum of Agreement. Current agreements and MOA dated October 15, 2012, MOA end May 6, 2013.
Second.
And moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Mr. Clerk,
Would
are
you
you-
like one? You want, you have
Oh.
your pen?
do.
We have the.
Which copy am I
the
signing?
original, yeah.
Oh, let's do it.
Anything to say?
That's it.
You already signed it?
Disability agreement?
We'll do the next motion.
Okay, move that the Board of Selectmen vote to execute a consolidated collective bargaining agreement, CBA, with the Littleton Professional Firefighters Association, International Association of Firefighters Local 4599, which contains all the provisions of the 2006 to 2009 CBA as modified for the 2009-2010 Memorandum of Agreement, MOA, the 2010 to 2012 MOA, and the November 5th, 2012 MOA.
Second.
I'm moving a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Again,
We'll
abstained?
have two sets of both contracts to
Okay.
board members to sign as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it.
See you then. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome. Good to see you as well.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks so much for the good bargaining round start.
This is great.
Should be a good time to go to those minutes now. I think we
Absolutely,
got a couple minutes
Mr.
before we're
Chair.
supposed to start the...
Those pesky minutes. This? You need that?
All right, make a motion to approve the Board of Selectmen minutes from Monday, June 10th, 2013.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anything else, Keith, for the consent agenda?
That was it.
That's it? All right, well, since it's not a public hearing, I'll go ahead right to it a couple minutes early, which is nice. So moving on to the preliminary goal setting exercise for the selectmen's goals. And, there was a lot of discussion last time about public input on these and whether we should have it or shouldn't have it. And what I proposed and decided, and is now on the agenda, as compromise, is to, for the selectmen to go through each of their goals, or through each goal, and get something, and then allow and then have the public comment following that. And so I'd just like to open this by saying, these are the selectmen's goals, and the way I interpret the selectmen's goals are, they are items that the selectmen see that they want to get done in town. So as sitting here, a couple of nights a month, and as being involved in town frequently and hearing what's going on in town and interacting with staff, this is what we put forth as what we want to accomplish, or we want to work on this year for the town. I was going to go through each person's, but I spoke with Joe, and he feels that going through each section, and so as far as we're going to go through economic development and then go through the next section would be the most efficient way, because there may be some redundancy in there. So if there's no objections to that, we'll continue on in that manner.
One thing first, Mr. Chairman, please. I think we should make 4A and 4B all 4A. It's the same matter. And, how you as the chair decide to hear public input is really irrelevant, but it's all the same subject matter. And it is the public goals, so.
No, it's not public goals, selectmen's goals. Right?
We are servants of the public.
Right, but these are the goals that we put forth throughout, this is what I put forth, this is what I want to accomplish this year. And, if I have input from friends who say, it goes in there, so.
My point being that it is the same particular matter. And just for the purposes of putting it all into the one exercise it is, I just think it's proper to have it all be the same agenda item.
Okay, it is, it's all under 4, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through all the goals, and we're going to get the selectmen to be able to efficiently discuss without stopping at each one, and then we'll come back for public input.
Will you do that section by section, or at the end of the whole?
Whole lot.
A whole lot.
And you promise not to skip 4B?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was confused, because I thought he was going to 4B now.
Right, no, to say, well, we don't have time for 4B,
Well,
come back in 2 weeks.
Well, it might be the Bruins game by then, so whoever wants to stick around, I know. I'm not a big fan,
It's
so
not
I'll
gonna
be
take
here.
that
Yeah.
long.
All right,
We'll do it.
so with that, we'll start with 1A, which is economic development, and it's Littleton Common Areas A and B implementation overlay village zoning. There is some background here, but I think do we need that, or do we want to go right on to the goals?
I said right on to the goals
Okay,
again,
yeah, okay, and, all right. So, under 1A, Jenna, you had a few goals here, so if you'd like to open them up for discussion amongst the board.
Sure. I would like to see us coordinate with Mass Highway to put a left-hand turn lane in the town center for 110 traffic. I have heard from at least a dozen people that it is taking your life into your own hands to try to turn left at the center. And it's my understanding from, I think, Mr. Clyde had said that that was proposed when the intersection went in, but there was some widening that perhaps needed to be done. So I would like to see if we could explore that.
I don't know, I remember someone talking about it when they doing the point, that when they were doing the point and doing the infrastructure down there, that they were also gonna take care of that problem, because I have the same complaints that I hear about all the time.
Right.
And I agree,
Yeah.
but I thought it was taken care of, I guess, I might be wrong.
I think I remember hearing that there was an engineering challenge to it of some sort, from one of the consultants, I think.
Jim, would you like to chime in, or would you like to, as highway manager?
Well, Mass Highway just changed those lights about 3 years ago, and they did not install it. I think it's something to do with the traffic that queues up, that they don't want to do it.
Because they went through their modeling or whatever they
Yeah,
had
I
to do,
mean, It
and
makes no sense to me, because you're backed up because you can't make it through the intersection.
Right.
I think with the new, I think, I agree that there's a problem during rush hour, I think, and, but with that thing just recently designed, and not that Mass Highway is the be-all end-all, it is their road, and if that's the way they designed it, they did their studies,
Could we look into asking, I'm not asking for a whole lane, just maybe a light that says it's, a delayed green arrow light?
We can ask.
Would you ask?
Well, we'll make it a goal, and then it'll get implemented.
All right.
And Jim, if you want to do anything, if it's a quick phone call and you want to do it before the next meeting and say, look, this is what they said, so it shouldn't, it's irrelevant now, then we can take off that point, but for right now. All right.
I shouldn't have come down.
Okay, another one on the list here is putting in bike lanes, bike access, and bike racks at the town center. I don't know if that is also a highway applicable goal or task, but we could encourage more cycling to the town center.
Keith, didn't the Park and Rec just get some money for that, the sidewalk? There was a grant to do a study on sidewalks and bike lanes?
It's for a, bike committee. It's a $5,000 grant
Right.
that the director of Elder and Human Services got from.
Oh, right. I had the wrong department.
But is that going to be covered, will that cover something like this?
It might.
Yeah. I just don't, the thing is, bike lanes, again, we're back to Mass Highway. Bike access, bike racks, bike racks at town center is just, it's getting the money for them, so. We can leave it in there as something to investigate.
Okay, put in a walkway from the town center to the point. I think that's happening anyhow. Is that right?
It's already there.
What type of walkway are you talking? Are you talking, because it's the sidewalks and things, but what
All
are
the
you
way
talking?
to the point there is. And is it on the side where the on-ramps are for the highway?
Yeah, it's on the southerly side.
South side, okay.
It's opposite the point, but that's.
That's okay. They can cross the street once
There's
rather
gonna
than
be
all the,
lanes.
okay, very good.
And pedestrian lanes.
All right, so that one, are we taking off? Check, good job, your first goal is accomplished.
Thank you. How about crosswalks with those pedestrian sandwich boards? Where we have the crosswalks painted nice and brightly, and then we have those little boards like they do in most towns that say, stop in a crosswalk for a pedestrian.
Most towns, if they're in the town, owns the center. These are Mass DOT regulated roads.
So we can't put anything in their road or?
We could put them on town roads, we can't put them
We
on
have them before,
state roads.
Mass DOT doesn't like them.
And
Do
if
we
you,
care if they like them or not?
It's their road.
It's their road, so
Yeah.
they can take them down.
yeah. And even if we were to say to
require
put them on the
permission to put them on
side,
the road.
even if we put like something on the side, that's still their right of way. That's,
Yeah.
it's not just,
These are basically pedestrian signs there
yeah.
on the poles. They're not in the center.
Okay, in lieu of sandwich boards, can the lines be painted more brightly?
We paint them every year. If it's a Mass DOT road, they have to be painted a specific way. You can't fill the middles with a different color.
Okay,
Mass DOT doesn't allow that. One color.
okay.
Okay. So,
All right,
Is that
so
accomplished?
I need to talk to Mass DOT, is what you're saying. All right, how about motorcycle and moped parking in town center? Can we take a couple of the spaces that we have and cut them into diagonal spaces for motorcycles and mopeds? Can we do that? Or is that also Mass DOT? And we can't change a parking arrangement around the center? I'm sorry, I didn't hear
So
you.
pick a spot. I mean,
Okay. Well, when you take me on the truck tour, I'll pick that spot.
okay.
All right. Well, good, check. Well, this is, I don't know how we're going to do this, but I'd like to encourage and support the property owners at the town center to clean up their storefronts. This was suggested to me that some of the look from the street is sometimes somewhat downtrodden, and that we,
That rolls right into the next goal of the Littleton Sewer, Common Sewer Feasibility Planning.
perhaps it does. So do we ever sit with business owners and talk to them about encouraging them to make Littleton lovely?
You know, this reminds me of the 300th committee, the heritage, it's the heritage group, right, Joe? The one,
Legacy.
legacy group. That may be something that they would undertake as part of their process, maybe already in it.
And it's something that has been talked about a lot. I know that individually, at times, and I'm dating back 4 or 5, even more years, there's one property owner that owns this from the right of the Shell station, the White House there, all the way down to the sub shop. Those buildings in there has been very basically uncooperative to get anything done, to clean up.
Yeah.
And I know that the garden club has talked about it, like Alex had said, the Legacy's talking about getting money at the end of the 300th or during the 300th to try to clean it up, so some efforts have been made.
Okay.
But has this board done anything recently? I don't think as a board we have. But it has been talked about, and people have been approached at times.
Okay.
And I agree, because it's I've had a lot of people talk about the eyesore sometimes it's there, because the common could be beautiful.
I think too, we need to, I know the planning board at their last meeting talked about the sign bylaw too. So that's something that can also be done, but it's already a process.
Yeah.
yeah.
The committee's already been through it, it's a matter of the planning board taking it up at this point.
So it sounds like this one's staying for us to continue to work on.
And do we have a method? I mean, do we have any, I mean, is it gonna definitely go 300th, or is it definitely gonna go to some park, I don't know.
It's-
I think it's a multifaceted approach.
So who, all right. Okay, so who will it get assigned to if it gets assigned to somebody? Some town department?
Not Jim Klein. I don't know, do we have a cleanup commission?
Well, we have zoning enforcement, and I think that's as far as Roland will go.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna leave it on there, that's just food for thought, we gotta have the goals, and we gotta have, some sort of method to get them done too.
I think we can discuss how to implement that, but part of it may be when some of the groups that are interested in doing that reach out to the people that they want to affect, that they know that this board is behind that, and that we would like to see everything as nice as it can be for our 300.
Yeah, that's a good goal.
Okay, moving on to 1B, Littleton Common Sewer Planning and
Want to just
Outreach.
recap what's in 1A?
Oh, from what I have in 1A is, we're going to ask the question again about, or 1A, what's going to go into the goals for the public hearing is going to be the work in Mass Highway with the left hand. The crosswalks was out, crosswalks with pedestrian, any sandwich one? That's out?
Sounds like that's
All right, that's out, okay. And then bike lanes, bike access, that was going to be in. I'm sorry, Keith, I didn't go in order here.
Can we just reach out to the Elder Affairs folks and see what their $5,000 study's gonna be about.
Yeah, I mean, you don't
We're
have
already in
to,
process.
yeah, I mean, we don't have to solve them or
Right,
implement them tonight, but I just want to make sure that I've got which ones are
All right.
on your
Gotcha.
list as opposed to which ones
Gotcha.
you were saying that we're not doing it.
All right, left-hand turn is in, bike lanes is in,
Mhm.
walkway town center point is
Happening,
accomplished.
Right.
Crosswalks with pedestrian mini sandwich boards was out because it's not possible, from what I understand.
Mhm.
Motorcycle moped would be in, and then property owners clean up the storefronts, encouraging property owners to clean the storefronts in.
Thank you.
So now moving on, 1B, Littleton Common Sewer Planning Outreach. Just go left to right in the chart here. Joe Knox, do you want to, I mean, let me tee this one up because I'm on the committee as well. There was a presentation back in April, and there will be other presentations. The Littleton Common Sewer Feasibility Study Committee met last week and discussed their public outreach, and we put together a plan and have some definite methods of getting information out there. So just teeing that up for you.
My comments just mainly meant that I want to make sure that we thank that committee for all the work they've done. It's a thankless job. And to encourage them encourage the committee you're on, that you once chaired, that, to bring the information to the town meeting and let it be discussed by, if there's opposition, let the opposition be there too. I had a feeling during the late spring that there was some people that were very discouraged on that committee, and I hate to see that happen to after. I think some of you then dropped off.
Yeah, yeah.
I just hate to see, I've been on committees that have done a lot of work, and sometimes nothing gets done. I just want to make sure that it's carried through to the end and encourage the work that's being done, and encourage the work for people who might be opposed to it, so we can get at the town meeting.
Okay.
Well, this is one of the bigger issues.
I wanted to go to Jenna because she actually has as a goal also.
Okay, I was thinking we should bring the committee and the folks who are associated with the No-Sewer website together in a working group of sorts to encourage the groups to work together, to put a collaborative presentation before the voters. I sat with both sides of, if you want to say sides, I sat with people from both the committee and from the group, and couldn't get, as a voter, a clear idea of what we were talking about. So I had said to both groups, I would love it if you could tell me, this is what we're looking at, and if we do it, here's what would happen, and if we don't do it, here's what could happen. Because it's hard for a voter to understand if one group says the sun is shining and the other one says the sun is not shining, to decide whether to put on sunscreen. So I would like to see the two groups get together and have foundational facts like stipulations to present to the jury, the voters, at special town meeting.
I'll circle back to that because we did talk about that at the committee. Alex, go ahead.
Well, this, in the stuff that I submitted, I talked about examining unintended consequences, and that belongs in this set of goals. Is that that's really part of this discussion, is that some people see one thing, the vision out ahead, and some people see something else. And I think part of our process we need to include into this is a true look at what are the consequences beyond the goals, but what can go wrong with it, what could be the downside, and take a good look at that, or pluses we don't know about. But I think that's part of the planning process. And before I relinquish the floor here, I do want to follow up on what Joe said. This is a difficult committee to belong to. It's an issue that has been a hotly debated issue for a long time. And the people on the committee are no doubt doing a lot of hard work. And there is a sense of frustration, and I liken it to the sense of frustration that went on in the crematorium stuff. That there was a lot of hard work, and it came down to one thing, public opinion. And that's where this is, in the end, that's all we're asking here. So I think we have to give them, we have to answer these questions. We have to say, what's going to happen if we get full build out? What's going to, what are the consequences? And what, in either way, and I think Jenna said that. what happens if we don't do it? And what are those consequences?
All right, I'm gonna stay on that track for a minute, because it's a little bit off track. The thing is, the next phase is to do that. The next phase is not to build it, but the next phase is to ask all those questions, and that's part of the misunderstanding. And that's what we have to get out here. Because when you say whether or not, find out what's gonna have the unintended consequences if we do it, well, that's what the next phase is gonna answer. The next phase is not, like I said, not to build. The next phase is to answer a lot of these questions, and that's part of the marketing campaign that we're up against, or not marketing, but to get the information out there. I think this goal, if this is the goal to bring the two groups together, that's a goal, that's fine if you want to keep it in there. The thing I would ask that it would be worded a little bit differently. I think there's a lot of things in here that I like the way it's worded, because, you call it the committee and not some of the other things that have been called. But, the fact, when you say like a jury, and make predictions about having or not having sewer, that's not what the sewer committee is about. The sewer committee is about putting information. We're not out here to debate, and we're not out here to prove anything, and we're not out here to tell people how to vote, certainly. So it's, if we can reword it that way, and just to let you know, I mean, just as I said, a lot of this is going to be done. We're going to be putting together a PowerPoint presentation, having another presentation. We're going to be doing a lot of things out here. So now, is there an option to have the no sewer group come at that meeting or one of the meetings and make a presentation? That may be possible. But it's a good goal, and we can keep it in there with some rewarding, I think.
Educating the voters is the piece that's important on that, and.
And it's clear that work has to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we got that one, Keith, that one's in. Those two.
Okay.
All right, if you want to consolidate that into one?
And keeping in mind that one of those two groups might choose to say, I don't want to. Both groups might say, we don't want to. We want our 10-minute PowerPoint at town meeting, and we.
Well, the group you control doesn't get to say that they don't want to. The
Very
town
good,
board,
okay.
the town board that you appoint doesn't get to say. If that's your goal, then at least from that standpoint, at
Okay.
least the invitation will be extended.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Littleton at the Crossroads now, 1C. Littleton at the Crossroads Planning Initiative. We got 3 people who have something under here for their goals, so let's start with Joe. The one left to right.
I think we all probably talk about the exact same thing, but we broke the ice back in 2012 when we had a nice working group at the police station to talk about 2 and 495 and some of those vacant buildings, what could be done. I think the best part about that meeting was there were a lot of people who went to that meeting that thought that we were going to force something on them, and that wasn't the case at all. We were pretty much opening up to all kinds of ideas, and by the end of the meeting, we had people after the meeting come up to us and say, I have this idea, that idea. We broke the ice, and then because of our schedule, we never went any further. But it's an area that's zoned that way. We're not changing any zoning. It's an area we should look at, because there's a lot of things that we could probably do in that area.
Jim?
As Joe stated, we started it. Schedules didn't really make it happen. I think it's more planning needs to be done. The planning board needs to be brought in for some ideas. So it's just moving to the next step. A lot of the business owners up there, a lot of the vacant buildings up there are looking for us to do something up there so that, that area can fill some empty buildings, really,
So it sounds like we're all in agreement, if you can paraphrase that. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, Alex. Yeah. That was not intentional.
When you say we're all in agreement, I immediately sorry. Well, I agree that, we started really well there. We got in, we've done some great things. The train station's going to be there. There's going to possibly be a transportation initiative there. But why we haven't focused there, and I've heard Keith say this through 7 goal-setting exercises, is that there's a limit to what we can focus on. And so we've focused in other places. And so I'm saying that what I'm trying to say here is this needs to be our top economic development focus. This needs to be number 1. And if we make it number 1, we've already proven that we can get someplace. But other things have sort of gotten in the way of the process and you know, have become high-profile things. And there's all sorts of reasons why this is the best choice for our economic development initiative right now. And that's what where I want to see us get to. Is that let's turn the sights right on this spot and go.
Do we have any agreement? We are in agreement, okay. So that one's staying, we're going in there, as I said, that's going in there. Mr. Crystal, you may have missed the introduction where we talked about that the selectmen are gonna go through their goals all at once, go through each goal, and then we're gonna circle back for public comment.
That's what I was
So
asking
1D,
for. So it's only at the end
Yes,
you get to
yes.
speed?
yes.
Take good notes.
I can go home.
1D,
Watch it on TV.
Littleton Common Area C, continue to explore extensive recreation, et cetera. So, Joe?
Well, basically, from what I understand, Mr. Chairman, you're actually working on this right now, so
That's our working group.
yeah, you're working.
That's what it feels like, yeah.
And that's what it was intended that, I think some positive things could be done there, and it was dropped, I think, by the planning board like 2 years ago, and I think if you bring it back up, we could see some positive results. And that's what I'm looking for, because there's a lot of good ideas that could be enhanced in that area to preserve, but also have something else happen.
Yeah.
So that was my intent when putting it in there.
And just as a quick update, yes, we are definitely working on that, and the last meeting that we had last week was probably one of the most productive meetings, town committee meetings I've ever been part of. It's just people were exchanging ideas, talking, listening, and we actually got a lot accomplished. So I really think that goal can be realistically met.
The only comment on that, Mr. Chair, is
Yes.
to maybe put some verbiage about the group that's working along with the planning board.
Yeah.
You know, that way it's a whole package now.
Okay.
So add in the, what is it, the.
Work together with
The zoning bylaw working group.
bylaw
with the
working group,
planning
so
board.
just
Yeah.
There you go.
work that title into there somewhere? Okay, thanks, Keith. 1E, this is Transportation Commuter Rail, implement crosstown connection. Joe?
Well, once again, I think we just saw the grand opening of the train station, the double tracks going in, and I know that Keith's been in contact with the MBTA, and the reverse commute's been worked on for a long time, which will also include other kinds of transportation, hopefully land transportation to get people going. I only put it in there because I wanted to remain there till it actually happens. I don't want to see it,
It's going to be a major focus of what we're working on, because we've got, the 7 towns working together, and we're bringing aboard things like setting up the Transportation Management Association. And we've got, about a year or two to work on having a shuttle system in place for when the enhanced schedule is implemented for the Littleton station.
Okay. Alex?
Yeah, one of the points I want to make here is that, early on in this process, people came to me and said, well, I take that train every day, and that's when the parking was what it was then, and we've improved the parking, we've improved that. But we have to make sure that we keep a very strong focus on the fact that there's a significant amount of our population that wants to make use of this system. And also, we saw residents come that were very concerned about the parking area and which way the traffic's going to go. And so we have to keep that piece of the local resident in there. There's a lot, we're talking about regional. We can't lose sight of we're local government.
Okay. Kevin?
Yeah, and that sort of mirrors my goal of having reserved and perhaps free spaces for Littleton residents at the commuter rail. Maybe Mass DOT controls the parking lot, and that's a no to that. No, it's a no, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the difference, the reason why the South Acton station has reduced parking rates for Acton residents is because the town of Acton actually owns the property. The town of Littleton owns no property at the commuter rail station. It's all owned by the T, and they're, obliged to charge the same rate. If the town acquired property, then, or owned the property, that we could frankly, we crunched the numbers though, and if we had ever purchased the property, we'd probably have to charge more.
Yeah.
Right,
than
okay.
than what it would
All right,
what it
fair
would
enough.
cost. But that's why we don't. But what we are looking at, increasing parking, I think maybe should be a part of this goal in some fashion, even if it's connecting remote parking lots via shuttle, so that there are other, park and ride things, other opportunities that we might be able to explore with free parking. It's something we can look at. I mean, in Concord, for example, you can park for free at Crosby's, and then walk over to Concord Station. But we don't have options like that in our community.
Thank you.
You have the idea what to put, paraphrase for a goal, to combine those two?
I'd say explore addition, I'd say the 1E as
Yeah.
drafted, and then add to promote additional parking for residents.
All right. 1F, Shop Littleton Initiative. Joe?
Just quickly, Mr. Chair, a while ago I was approached by small business owners saying, Littleton should be doing this for the town, or the town should be doing this for me type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I started talking to some business owners, and that same person, when I talked about the opportunity to meet with other business owners and talk about it, it was pretty much put down.
Yeah.
Being too busy to do that type of thing, so quite honestly, I'd postpone this for a year, not having it on our goals, if it's all right with everyone.
Yeah, that's fine, because I had this a similar goal last year, and I think I just got tied up with too many, with other things that just fell off my table too, so.
And at least this time I went out and talked to some people, and.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you got further than me without even being a goal.
But it didn't get anywhere, so.
Yeah, it's still you.
I think
Okay.
third Thursday is a big step in that direction.
I agree.
Yeah, probably is.
Yeah.
But there used to be a small businessman's group in town. Does that still exist?
Not that I know.
There was, I don't know, 10 years ago that I last know of it.
Okay. All right, 1G, Air Road, begin planning process for Air Road, including quarry and old pre-stressed buildings. We had the TIF come in for FIBA Technologies, and Alex, you have a statement under here. Go ahead.
Well, last year we identified the crossroads, the Route 2 and 495 crossroads, and we identified this area, and we actually accomplished quite a goal by getting fiber technologies in there. But that area, the economy isn't what that area was built on, and that area needs to have a transition. And we should, and it's more than just the closure of the, whenever that closure comes, but we have areas there that are really out of sync with the current economy, and we should look to find ways to encourage more people like fiber to go in there.
I think any type of economic development is worthy, so I think we need to get it on there and try to keep it up higher on the radar screen and see what we can do. Okay. Policy discussions on economic development with Finance Committee and the Planning Board. Go ahead. Jim?
Well, I think, a key piece to the town running as smoothly as it has, that the communication between the finance committee and this board and the school committee has been working good. So when we start talking about economic development and revenues, I think we definitely need to bring those groups into it for their perspective in regards to policy, bylaw changes or anything like that, just to keep them in the loop, so.
Okay.
Matter of continued support to all the boards.
Alex?
Yeah, again, some of these things sort of are, whether they ended up here or they ended up in another pieces, kind of hard to tell, but one of the things that makes a local community and a common, in a sense of a hub of a community, is the types and the atmosphere of the businesses that are there. I think we need to find ways to support small businesses and the emergence or re-emergences of small businesses so that they have a viable economy And all our little storefronts are in a position of ever improving. And if we do it in the right way, then we're preserving the look of our common and part of our community character. And we really haven't done any work on just this piece. How do we support local businesses? How do we help them reemerge? Maybe there's grants out there somewhere that we can help facilitate, that we're bringing consultants for these businesses to help them secure their future right where they are on Littleton Common.
Jenna?
I had suggested to me that we develop a marketing plan for Littleton to attract high-tech, administrative, small corporations or boutique retail to utilize existing office space and empty space in town. I understand from this board that we already do prohibit the big box retail, so.
Well, it's through
That-
planning, it's through planning.
Through the planning, that won't happen,
Yeah.
so we can pull that one off. Another interesting thing that was brought up was this idea of having micro stores in other parts of the town, not just have, the center with its commercial aspect there, but perhaps to be able to have, like over in the Lake Manawanaki area, a micro store where you could get just simple essentials at that store, and then you don't have to travel all the way downtown. Have one maybe in the lake area, and that would encourage, according to the suggester, villaging, meaning that you would have a community center for the folks in that neighborhood to connect with one another. That would have to have a zoning variance, I would imagine, to
Well,
put.
not variance, bylaw change, zoning amendment probably, because variances are only from zoning are very specific. So I think if you're going down the road you want to go, I think it just has to be reworded to say, it's a zoning bylaw or something like that.
Okay.
To maybe even update or relook at, one of our goals has always been to look at the bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
And one that I had about the housing, work with the planning board for affordable housing, so kind of put that into the actual commercial zoning bylaw to see what type of adaptation that needs to get accomplished. But the planning board has been very reluctant to do spot zoning type stuff, so.
Yeah.
You can't do spot.
Yeah, spot zoning gets you in
Right.
trouble.
So-
But there could be, maybe there's something that they can rewrite in there that said, each, somehow neighborhood is allowed one store, somehow like that. It's worthwhile to get in there and start to have a conversation about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
we
ahead.
don't have to resolve it tonight, but if you put it on the.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I know, that's what we're getting trapped in.
Right.
Go ahead.
And the
We
last one
can try to
is.
resolve as many pieces.
Right.
Yeah.
The last one is similar to what Alex had said about sort of curing the empty building syndrome by taking inventory. Are we able to do that as a town, sort of figure out who owns what, where, and whether it's filled with people doing work and business?
Well, there's an amazing amount of information that the assessors have about
Needs to be
commercial
timed.
properties.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this could be his final project?
Well,
It's
it's.
his final project.
Yeah.
Mary,
He
be
has a
out
lot.
there, it's already out there,
The information's there, it just has to be organized.
Right, and there's nothing wrong and everything right with putting it on the radar screen as something that you'd like the organization to do. The challenge will be for us to figure out how, with a bunch of people working for different appointing authorities, sometimes how you get all of that coordination done. Because right now, it's no one's responsibility to do it, and as much as I might like assign it to the planning department, that's not my employee, so, or yours.
Okay.
But it all starts here, in that we have to have this goal.
Right.
And sort of shape a policy that says we want to support
Right.
small
Yeah, we don't-
businesses,
right.
local business owners, and be accommodating to the micro concept. Some of this this very thing is going to fall into whatever we do with Foster Street or Route 2, 495 Crossroads. Because when we first discussed that, we talked about little villaging effects, where the people that were using the commuter rail could get things like dry cleaning.
Right.
I heard one person talking about a really good business model related to that, and a few other things that, you know, so we're gonna sort of be going down this road anyway, why not expand it?
It gets back to the overlay districting, is essentially
Yeah.
what we started at the Route 2, 495 area. That was our focus, and once we had that meeting with all the property owners, they were very upbeat to hear about the overlay, because of, you know, what we've done in the commons. So that, like you say, will roll right into that also, so.
I think what slowed us down there was we had the challenges of the aquifer there. And that's a little bit more challenging than
Okay.
it was at the point.
I just want to stay
Yep.
on track, I don't want to go too far. Okay, Keith, you good on that?
You got it?
On one? Okay, so we're gonna go to 2, town services. Joe and Jim both have reviewed 10-year road plan as needed. That's kind of a rolling thing that we do. I don't think we need to spend any discussion on that. If anyone has anything, we can stop for a minute. So moving on to joint municipal schools facilities assessment project with PMBC facility managers first phase. Is that underway, Keith? Is that these
Yes, it
things?
is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something we're
So,
doing, yeah, through
these are the
the,
plans for 300 King Street, sidewalk improvement plan. Oh, actually, so the joint municipal schools facilities assessment project with PMBC, they don't have any discussion on that? Does anybody have anything to add? All right, plans for 300 King Street?
That's
Okay.
that's
that's the
ongoing.
part,
right
that's
now.
the Park and Rec.
Yeah.
Park and Rec.
Okay.
Yeah, I just would like to alert the board, however, that the Castle in the Trees playground has been, as you know, there since 1991, and recently, a woman named Christy Bates Malio has been working very hard to raise money. At some point, it is likely she will be gifting to this board, to the town through this board, a playground to the tune of about $50,000. So just letting you know that that's an ongoing piece, and she is coordinating with the Park and Recreation to figure out all the right ways to get that done.
Good, okay, thank you. So sidewalk improvement plan, you're up again.
Yep, Shaker Lane has an elementary school. Shaker Lane, in my opinion, should have a sidewalk. And I'm just echoing someone else's opinion here. I think that it makes sense to have a sidewalk there. I don't know how we do that. How do we do
Well,
that?
explore, there's nothing wrong with exploring,
Yeah.
and someone can lay out the plans and say,
Right,
yes,
I
it
mean,
fits, it
we-
doesn't, what's the cost?
Right, I mean, the
no
goal
problem.
last year was to start a sidewalk improvement
There you go,
plan. We
just
got as far
exactly what I was
as
gonna
the sidewalk on
Russell
Russell Street,
Mhm.
connecting the schools with the point.
Right.
And so we're in the design phase on that, and that Sam Park has agreed to $60,000 to some number that would be donated once our plan is in place. But sure, yeah, and
That's
it
no
all
problem.
started with.
Incorporate that along with that, the sidewalk fund that
Yeah.
we're gonna work with the planning board as to when developments come in. You know, if they don't wanna build a sidewalk in their development, then give us the money that it would've cost for the 1,000 feet of sidewalk
Okay.
and
Yeah.
put it in the sidewalk fund. So
I'll
that's
include,
a,
I'll mention Russell Street and Shaker Lane. and-
Yeah.
and
Thank
well,
you.
but also that planning
the
board.
planning
piece too.
board, yeah.
All right, so still on town services, fire implement staffing increases, develop plans for facility improvements. We have that, right? So, Alex, did you want to say anything?
No, I think, you know, we're at a critical point here, we've moved ahead with, moving ahead with 24-hour staffing, but the next big piece is providing the facilities they need to effectively do that. This board has been supportive of that.
You-
We'll
yeah,
continue.
You'll have some major policy decisions coming up, including, you know, when to go, when and how to go for funding, first for design, then for construction, and
Okay.
some robust discussions around that.
All right, moving on to 3, organizational. What was that?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
All right. So, Jim, review town bylaws, that's kind of rolling forward, continuing that one?
It is, but to add the piece to that, in regards to the affordable housing options.
Yep.
So that let's work with the planning board to look at that zoning bylaw for comprehensive permits for subdivisions. During the whole Omni discussions, you know, our consultants, I forget his name. I can't believe I forget his name, Keith.
Ed Marchand.
Thank you. Ed Marchand. Said how most towns in Massachusetts, because of the 40B issue, have some type of affordable housing language in their bylaw, so I think we should do that to get as much stock on inventory as we can.
And there's mention of affordable housing
Right.
under section 6,
Six.
regulatory issues,
Right.
I think the third item down.
So should we keep them the same or keep them together?
Well, I think we should put it in one place, but
Yeah.
wherever you.
So long as the affordable housing gets in.
Well, I think I'm moving it up there because, I mean, that's what, you know.
I think
that's-
it's probably a regulatory issue, because it wouldn't be done by the, it's
Yeah,
it's
okay.
not gonna be effective.
All right, so we'll leave it in there.
It
So that would be added, I mean,
doesn't redo the organization.
if we're gonna do that, because I had one down there that says, you know, develop a bylaw, so I mean, that's where it would be done, is up there by planning board organization. Okay. Johnny, you're up.
Could we codify the purpose of annual town meeting and special town meeting, specifically meaning that annual town meeting is to address the upcoming fiscal year, while special town meeting is for matters within the fiscal year? Can
We can say that, sure.
To make it, but then
I'd say it just that way, in fact.
is that to require it, to limit things that can be called, or is that just kind of a definition? Are you looking to limit anything being held?
I would like for people to know, when I go to annual town meeting, I'm talking about the upcoming fiscal year. When I go to special town meeting, it's perhaps to make adjustment within the current fiscal year.
Right, that's exactly what the difference is, yeah.
Well, I think it's a good point, because I think we've sort of put some things in there that, you know, over time, a little bit more and more, and I think refocusing back to what the original intent is important.
I agree that the definition is there. I mean, I think that, I just want to make sure, I would be cautious of putting any limitations on there, because the police station got done in fall, and there's things
Well,
that
sure, I
didn't
mean,
get
I
done
didn't
in
hear,
fall.
I wasn't hearing anything about that you can't undertake a project in the current year.
Yeah.
What I was hearing is that if you put it in a special town meeting, you are undertaking
Okay,
it
well,
in the current year.
let's jump down to the next one
If you're
then.
doing it in an annual, then you're doing it in the next year.
I think that the next one goes right to that point.
The next one goes right to that point. We should have policy written and adopted to limit special town meeting topics to truly special things. My understanding is a special town meeting was an invention of potential emergency, when, you know, school burns to the ground, and now we need to convene a special town meeting to address how we're going to. No?
I've never heard that.
But
No, I mean, a special town meeting, many towns divide their, the subject matter, and many routinely have do all their regulatory and zoning stuff at a special town meeting held in the fall, and just focus on the budget at an annual town meeting. We don't have such a practice here, and typically, we're using the fall special town meeting to finalize the budget that was adopted at the annual town meeting, based on whatever the, you know, final state budget is. So that the vote that we take in May is based on a budget, a speculative budget that the state may not adopt until July. And that's just where we are this year. We will have to have a special town meeting in order to set the property tax rate, and we've had that every year. I mean, that happens every year. So, like, so what I can say is, safely say is, we will always be needing a fall special town meeting unless the legislature adopts a state budget prior to the first week in May, which they don't.
Okay.
So,
But I think the point here is giving ourselves some guidance about what is appropriate to be on there and what isn't. And we don't really have anything other than a practice, we don't have a policy.
I don't think we want to handcuff ourselves. You know, things like schools, they come up,
Yeah.
the money's available only at a certain time, and if you have a policy saying that you can't do anything until May town meeting, like build a school, and then, but the money is no longer available after January 1, then you're handcuffed. And then the other thing says, well, we'll just make an exception to that, and everything gets made an exception, so why have a rule?
yeah. I mean, the practice up till now is that we bring a major project forward to a town meeting when it's ready
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah.
And in the case of the police station, for example, it was ready to go for, you know, October of 2008. So that's when we brought it there, and even scheduled a special election for the debt exclusion. It wasn't ready at the annual town meeting. We knew we were going to have other things in the queue for the school department at the following May town meeting. So again, I put this one in one of the category of, we don't need to resolve it tonight, but there's certainly nothing wrong with having, if you want to adopt a goal to look at it, then we
You
can.
need to put
then we
wording in
can
there as we do in our
put-
annual
put some
town
word-
meeting.
wording in
We have that package that's mailed out, the booklet, if we can do it for the special town meeting, that.
Yeah, we
Well, we
do.
do it.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do
we
that.
do it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the
So,
voter
I mean-
information goes out for each one, but
I'll talk about maybe the definition, maybe spell it out right in that booklet,
I see
you know what I'm
what
saying?
I mean, I'll use a couple of examples that we may or may not be ready to bring a $500,000 design for the sewer for Littleton Common forward. We may or may not be ready to bring a $500,000 design for a new fire station forward. That if it's helpful to sort through whether we're ready or not to have a policy in place, then, we've got to, then let's have the goal for tonight. Let's have a goal, let's agree to discuss it, and then you can adopt a policy or practice that either says as little or as much as you're comfortable in saying, but be mindful that what you're doing will be a guide for how both of those projects and many others would get considered.
And the other people that belong in this discussion is FinCom.
Yeah, FinCom,
Yeah.
and, any of the big players, I mean, if when the time comes, for example, if the, and we saw today that the Mass Board of Library Commissioners was inviting, grant applications again. When the time comes when the trustees want to go after a major project, that when it's conducive for the funding cycle needs to be a major component. I mean, we shouldn't, deprive ourselves of 50% state funding because we have a policy that says we only get to ask in May.
Right, and then,
Yes.
If the deadline is some other time.
so is it worth discussing for examples, that Keith said, is it worth trying to develop a policy? I mean, I just think, or is it,
Well, you can have the discussion, well,
yeah,
my
why don't you
suggestion- my
address this?
suggestion,
One, leave it-
yeah, my suggestion would be that you adopt a goal to examine that issue, and whether you actually adopt a policy or not, you'll see when you have your discussion.
all right,
And then the last piece about that is policy adopted ensuring good governance at the annual town meeting. For instance, no votes requiring more than a simple majority may be taken after a set time, say 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. That we as the selectmen could adopt a policy that we don't put stuff on there that requires more than a simple majority that we think is going to run over.
town meeting is run by town, can we control what happens with town meeting? Or should the
Well,
moderator, or is this a moderator? I mean,
We order the warrant, though, number one, number two.
You're to,
right,
yeah,
right.
you order the warrant, if the.
I think you're running into trouble, running into trouble, why? Then all of a sudden, something runs over that you didn't expect it to run over, and now it's 9 o'clock, we have to adjourn until the next night to have another meeting? And who says that's any more convenient than staying there till 9:15?
It's just a set time, and 9 PM was an example time. But there are people who get to, warrant number 26 and say, what, it's 11 o'clock, I need to go home. But they wanted to stay through to 29. I know at our last annual town meeting, people stayed because of the very last warrant article. And people asked me, before I became a member of this board, well, why is it last? And I said, the Board of Selectmen order the warrant. I don't know why it's last.
And then there's 100 dedicated people who stay there till the end, no matter what is last.
Sometimes you put them on the end to keep the quorum. I mean,
Yeah.
to keep, we don't have a quorum, but to keep the attendance.
But
there.
what's,
So, because if you put all the high,
Participation.
if you put all the ones that people are most interested in, then the room is empty at 8:30.
you end up with six, with 5 selectmen, the moderator and Jimmy.
The voter participation committee did start on a discussion on this at their last meeting, and obviously we didn't come to any conclusion about that because, where the order of articles, of course, is in the purview of the selectmen, but what the impact of that is at the town meeting attendance is quite the discussion. Because we do have a town meeting where everybody stayed till the end. And we have that last town meeting, that's what it was. And there are others where Article 5 comes along, and Article 6 means there's 6 people left in the audience to vote on it. And So I don't know, it's a discussion worth having.
And who's to say good governance is defined by stopping at a certain time? Because that could, good governance could mean getting it all done in one night.
Could.
Well, I think we should be very careful not to make it about our convenience as the people running the government. It really needs to be about the convenience of the voters who are attending. And that, their wishes are who we should defer to as we try to place order and, to the town meeting.
Right. Well, that's sort of what you hear, at the, as it gets late in the evening, the moderator would say, do you want to stay here and finish this up, or do you want to come back tomorrow night? And, you hear people to say, let's finish it,
Get it done,
finish it
yeah.
up.
Let's
I got
finish
things
it,
to
let's
do.
finish it, yeah. I think it's a moderator, or,
Well,
it's a town meeting. It's not
Well,
like
I think Alex hit it on the head, that you've got a committee in place where you can, perhaps where this discussion could be directed. You've got the moderator, the town clerk, representatives of this board and other boards in the public to talk about, and the goal being to enhance the voter participation, so.
So we could talk about it at a later point and keeping it as a goal?
Reworded, I think.
Yeah.
You're dividing.
Right, no, I'm not,
Yeah, yeah.
this was a suggestion, that's
But it's your-
EG
yeah.
being a suggestion.
The voter participation committee is only going to be one set of thoughts on this matter. It's really, you can't just kick it off to us and say, solve the problem. We're not going to be able to do that.
All right.
We're going to be part of the solution.
So let's look at this. Good governance, but what's the purpose of this? To get people to attend? Get people to stay? Get people to not miss meetings? Because if you say you have a policy written and adopted to ensure people stay at the meeting, well, that's what we have, is we have a committee. So in the interest of redundancy, can we just not use it, or do we need to reword it and defer to voter participation committee?
I think it's a case with, maybe, besides the committee that you were talking about, I understand where you're coming from, because I hate to see it come 11 o'clock at night, when people are tired and people are voting to get out of here. That's always it's been a concern with this board, doing important business after 10 o'clock at night. That always has me concerned. Are we giving it the full view that everyone should be taking? Are we rushing through it? So I understand where it's coming from. It's just difficult, like Keith said, when the moderator says, do you want to continue? I'm the one to say, next night. But I'm,
No, did?
and I'm ruled out right away. But I don't know how they solve the problem. Maybe we do just take time at another meeting coming up to talk about it.
And let's hear from the voter participation
Yeah.
group.
Yeah.
They've started to talk about it, let's see what they.
Maybe what your goal could be is to review the policies and practices for the conduct of town meeting.
All right, defer, yeah, something like that. So keep it on there, reworded. Okay.
And I would imagine this will come to a joint meeting with the voter participation committee, the board, with the moderator in attendance and a few others, to actually hone in on what.
Yeah, we don't have to solve it tonight,
We
though,
won't,
like Keith said.
and we won't go late.
We won't have to solve, we don't have to solve it
We
tonight.
can't do it after.
So, 3B, review procurement policies and work on townwide contracts. Jim, I mean, that's,
Really never came to fruition.
But that was last year?
It was last year, yeah, so
Yeah.
we just want to keep on it and work with the finance team, that's all.
okay. Review policy of snow and ice removal on private ways. This board has voted to support that a couple times here. There's nothing written down, no one had any goals about it. I get attacked without even saying anything about this, so I'm not going near that.
So
What's,
there's no change to it. As it stands, it has been and will be forevermore. Perhaps.
Unless the board takes an affirmative action. I mean, if you don't, if you want to let the policy, the reinstituted policy stand, then the best way to send that signal would be not to have a goal on
Well,
I
private
think we
ways.
should, if nobody's got a comment on it, let's strike 3C completely.
In all honesty, too, this board talked about reasons for it. I think we were given a pretty good indication that people weren't for it at that town meeting, because it wasn't even close to the vote, so I would suggest we drop it too.
I agree.
right. Consolidated policy on town vehicles, I think we accomplished that, right? Yeah, 10:15.
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Review Selectmen's administrative procedures. You know, I just want to go through all of the Selectmen's policy, this is one of mine here. And, you know, just like we're doing with some of the zoning, just go through some of the policies and bring them up to date. The other one I have is schedule quarterly updates for our annual goals. So what we're doing right here, we should have, I don't know if it's quarterly, I don't know if it's semi-annual or something, but, you know, a lot of these things, we say, oh, we never got to it, fell off the radar, so I'm just looking to, you know, sometime in, you know, November or something, to bring these back and get an update on each one of these. Joe, you have something on this as well?
Yeah, I put down perform a self-evaluation of the board. Some of this goes back to the town government study committee. The suggestion back a while ago was maybe so many years a board does a self-evaluation. And I went online to try to find self-evaluation procedures, and all I found basically was self-evaluation for nonprofits, which we didn't fall into. But I did have a discussion with a member of the town government study committee, and he's going to supply me with a type of self-evaluation where we just write down where we think what we have done, and where we've been, what we can do in the future. And I think it might be important in a way, because it'll remind us, and remind the public of things that have been accomplished, things that we've faulted on, things that we can improve. So it's something that we, if you allow me, I'll try to find that if you even want to consider it.
Yeah, I like it.
I think we get evaluated
You
every
can
3
have it,
years.
Joe.
We get evaluated
You can
every
have
3 years. don't we?
Well, I'll try to find that form.
We could
But not as a board, just
individually
as a-
evaluate it.
Well, that's, yeah, but if we, you know, if the, you know, what happens if, you know, I start sandbagging stuff and pushing stuff off because I know Alex is up for election and, you know, he's gonna make him look bad, our evaluation make him look bad, you know?
The rest of us will make sure he
You
doesn't.
sound like the House Republicans.
Yeah. All right, Jim?
I think
You're in with
it goes-
mine.
Yeah, it
Go
goes right
through
up.
everything, yeah.
Just go through
All
it,
right.
right.
Alex?
One of the things, I brought this up before, and it's part of conducting our annual exercises, setting the goals. I think we can't do that in a vacuum. They aren't our goals, in my opinion. They aren't our goals. They're the goals for the town that we as leaders want to pursue at that particular, and prioritize at that particular time. So I would like to make more use of the boards collaborating, working together, and times where we all get the big picture. And the only way I've seen it's effective for doing that is having an all boards meeting where everybody has 5 minutes to speak, and they lay out their overall picture, and the communication opens up, and I think we perform better as a unit that way.
Okay.
I'll just add to that, you know, it was done this past year with the finance committee. One Saturday afternoon, we all went down. I thought that worked great, just incorporate with the finance committee and just call it done. We get to see everybody.
Saturday morning and afternoon.
And afternoon, you're right, yes, yes.
All right. Council on Aging. We got a couple here. Joe?
Couple things. I think we've made strides with the new police station, now talking about a new fire station, a new road system. I think we should take some time maybe to have the seniors or the COA come in so they can give us an update of things that they may need the town to look into to acquire or to help them out in any way possible. And I also put down, I think somewhere online, it'd be nice for this board to sponsor a supper that we run and do for the seniors right here. So we're out there, and I think what I'm trying to avoid is a situation, I think we've all gone through it, that when you're running for office, you make the statement that, yeah, I support doing things for the seniors, and it's been dropped because so many other things have come up. And I think now we're at the point that we should invite them in, have them come in, so they can be here, be on TV, so they can express some of the things they think that they need, some of the things they deserve, and so forth. I think it's a simple goal, but we can start on it this year. It's a complex goal, but we can start with the simple part of it right now.
Thank you.
What are you serving? Alex?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, that we need to, we've done some things for the seniors, and I meet with them once or twice a year, and Joe and I have gone to a couple of things where seniors have been involved. But I think to formally put into our goals a process that is finding ways to support what is a growing senior population and their ability to stay and live in this town and flourish. I think it's time that we put that up there and did some work on it. We've done a lot for the senior work-off program. Over the years, we've been able to make some improvements here, but there's a lot more. And they have strong advocates there, and I'm sure they'll keep us steered in the right direction if we engage them.
Okay. All right. So we got goals there, Keith, you all set on that?
Yep.
All right. Let's see, fiscal management.
Oh, you skipped.
Oh, I see.
Townwide
Oh, yeah.
Standards for hiring.
Okay, sorry, yep, Alex. You got some townwide standards for hiring? Is that a whole new category?
It is.
Go ahead, Alex.
Do you see it?
Establish a
Oh, yeah.
townwide
Yeah,
uniform
I'm sorry.
hiring process and practices and policy.
We have some excellent hiring processes going in this town. I've served since 2006 on the personnel board. And we've been making steady progress towards an excellent set of HR policies. I think one of the places we can stand for improvement is the uniformity in the hiring processes. And we don't have say over what an autonomous board has to do. But much like the code of conduct, we can establish a practice, a set of professional practices that would be very easy for others to follow. And in that way, we can ensure that we're putting the best people in the positions, and we're protecting ourselves in those processes as we go. So I've long been a proponent of this, and I'd like to see us get this dialogue, crossing departments, crossing boards, so that in the end, we can have a unified policy, a comprehensive policy.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion. Fiscal management, Joe.
All right. When I was reading through this just now, it makes it look like I'm being negative on the subject. I guess what I'm looking for is more information for myself and the board. I know there was discussion last year of taking monies and putting it into the CPA fund, which is good. My only concern is, what limitations does that give us for the use of that money in the future? And I just need that explained, or maybe we could take time at a meeting in the future to do that. And the same thing with the cell tower. I'm not concerned about how it's being used. I just want to, I want to know where it's going. If this tower went for that, this goes, I just want for the information that we can give out to the public too, because people ask me that question and I don't have the answer all the time for them. So it's, the way I wrote it came out negative.
Yeah.
It was more meant as an informational type of
How about just a generalized policy review for the CPA? Well, we're waiting
Well,
for
yeah,
legislation to
yeah.
be passed too.
No, it's passed.
Oh, it did get passed?
It's passed, but what we're waiting on is the administrative procedures from the Department of Revenue on how to accept it. Best guess right now is it's 2 steps. 3 steps. Step 1 would be if you have a fall town meeting with special matters, then it would be to vote to accept the revised form of the Community Preservation Act, which allows us to add our own money.
So
Step one.
why don't we
Yeah.
just wrap that all
Yeah.
into not only the CPA, but the cell tower? Because that was the
Yeah.
discussion as to where it was
Yeah, because the
going.
main issue there, just as a practical matter, that because putting the money in the local money in the CPA fund uniquely gets you state matching funds, that it's worth exploring whether you have enough projects that fall within the category for CPA, that it's worth your investing those local money in the CPA fund for the purpose of getting state matching funds. If you don't have a long list of projects that you would then do with the CPA funds, then you're taking money away that you need. But if you're gonna do them anyway, then this funding mechanism is something we will want to fully explore.
Case by case basis.
And, yeah, well, one suggestion I have is maybe we have some semi-annual updates of the accounts and where the money's being spent. Because I know I talk to Bonnie, a couple times a year. I'll say, hey, what's going on with CPA? Where's the balances, things like that? Where's the money? And then that's just one of the many things that I redundantly ask you. So,
We know what
something like
We can tell
that.
you that now based on what, you can only spend it at a town meeting.
No, but we can just have an account,
Yeah.
accounting, maybe before annual and before town special, we have an update of something. So, something like that. All right. All right, moving on. Mr. Carr, Jim. I'm sorry, senior tax workout program.
We just looked at increasing.
We went to the limit last, did we?
No, you
No, we
increased it from $50,000 to $55,000. That still only allows the seniors to get, I don't know, is it $400 or $500?
Between 400 and 500,
Uh,
depending on the individual.
The statutory maximum is 1,000.
Per person.
But, per person,
Yeah.
but that's at state minimum wage, so that's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And it's something that the Council on Aging is gonna be looking at in any event.
Okay.
Because we didn't, even this year when we had 50,000, we didn't spend 50,000, we spent 45,000. So,
Okay, well, let's go, keep it on there then, yeah. Explore new funding sources, project mitigation fund. So, just examples of this before, were the meals tax, the mitigation in the two host community agreements between Green Meadows and 15 Great Road. So I guess we just keep it on there, explore new funding sources.
Yep, that's-
Now we're all sounding like Democrats, right, Keith?
thank you.
FY 2015 budget preparation, updating financial policies with FinCom and Selectmen. Joe, go ahead.
No, I just think it's something we did this past year, and we just have to continue with it. Mr. Carr mentioned it at the meeting we had on Saturday. I think all things like that are working in the right direction, so we keep a careful eye on what's happening. Mostly with funding, gets tougher and tougher.
Yeah, I thought this year was much better, and I hope to see that improve. Jim?
Yeah, just the same thing, the finance team is fantastic. FinCom is working very closely with the school committee and us. Let's just keep it going.
Okay.
Keep it on there.
And,
Jenna?
yeah, and my comment to this is actually, sorry Keith, inappropriately placed under this heading. It really should be under town services. Barbara and Henry Whitcomb came before this board, I believe, about 18 months ago to talk about their See a New Sun.
Yes, yeah, and we're committed to fund the local share, 5,000,
10.
starting next year. Well, the program's 10, 5,000 can be obtained through a state grant.
Oh, very
The
good,
other
okay.
5,000 is from the town.
Okay, very good, thank you.
What is this?
Can we put, do we get an update on that sometime?
Sure,
Because,
yeah.
I mean, I remember voting for it, and I think I have the
Yeah,
magnet on
and
my
it was
refrigerator. I keep thinking we gotta get an
It was
update.
implemented earlier this year, and we can get you, we can.
So when would be a good time to implement, like 6 months from the start?
Yeah, I would say by the beginning of the school year would be a good.
Okay.
time to-
To have an update,
Update on the program?
because I can invite Barbara Whitcomb to come and let us know.
So can we add that there, update September 2013?
Yeah, and that's a, let's see. Services. I think we maybe might want to add that as a separate bullet under town services.
Okay.
So,
All right, yeah. All right, this one was one of mine from last year, cost benefit analysis for capital expenditures. I see things being bought, and there's, the one example that I can think of is the vehicle for the building inspector, where I think the original was gonna be, a small SUV, and we got it done, we ended up driving a smaller sedan, and I think that having some sort of cost benefit analysis, and I can work with Bonnie, and what I envision it to be similar to something like the hiring review policy, something like that, just, a form, why, things like that, and, I'd be willing to work on it with you if people want to keep it as a goal. And then, you may say, well, it's too much work, and you're gonna spend more money than we'll save, so we'll look at that, if everyone's up with that.
Okay.
Tax relief for seniors, Jim?
Yeah, I just, again, whatever we can do for the seniors along with the vets in town. I know Mr. Borowski's been doing a fine job as a veterans agent here, so if there's any other needs for the vets, I know it's under a senior, but.
No, because I think it's on there, maybe it should be just put both of them on there, because we
Right.
did start that work-off program. But last
Right.
Yeah,
special town meeting.
Yeah, what, you want to say senior and veteran staff?
Yes.
Yeah.
For programs.
All right. Environmental. 5A is farmland preservation, including MAGIC, Comprehensive Agricultural Planning Program, preserving agricultural MAGIC, agricultural project implementation, etc. Joe?
So I think we all probably have the same goals in general. I just want to make sure that while we're driving for the agricultural goals, we don't have sides being drawn, which I think has come up a couple times. We're all working for the same thing. I think we have to be carefully aware too that we're so lucky to have so many active farms left. And we want to make sure that we work with the Agricultural Commission to make sure that remains that way. Even since when I was a kid, I can tell you the number of farms that have been lost. I don't want to see it happen again. So I think it's very, very important that the town as a whole, to hold on to the town character that the farms actually give us, that we have to work with all sides to make sure that we accomplish the goals.
Okay. Jim?
Yeah, it's, pretty much what Joe said. I think, still working with the MAGIC Comprehensive Agricultural Planning Program and, keeping our active agricultural commission involved is a good thing.
Okay.
We proved it with the church medals.
Alex, looks like you have something a little more specific?
Yeah, I think my comment revolves around, there's one thing that every one of these farmers needs, and no matter whether you're a traditional farmer, alternative farmer, or whatever, you gotta have agricultural soil. And it just makes sense to me that when it comes to preservation, that's one of the things we should target, know where they are, identify them, and try to work to secure that. Whether we have a discussion about the type of farming is irrelevant, because if the soil's not there, we don't have to have a discussion about what kind of farming will be there. So,
Well, that's
that should
specifically
be job
identifying, yeah.
one.
Well, that's a 5-minute job, so I mean, that shouldn't be a problem. Identifying the properties with prime soil. Prime agricultural soil, that's about a 5-minute job, so. Go ahead, do you have anything else? More on that, Alex? Yeah,
No,
go
I
ahead, two
think
paragraphs, so you're
the
done.
second half of that is, that, we actually heard it at one of the meetings, who knows what the future of agriculture is, whether, you look at the farms that are there now, and they've undergone a lot of changes to adapt to what's current. I think we have to be positioned to embrace the farming, whatever it is, of the future. And there's a lot of changes that are happening, and we have to be understanding of that.
Okay. Jenna?
As was suggested to me, people would like to see some real numbers on agricultural or open space preservation, and it is not enough to say Littleton will encourage open space and agriculture preservation, and that we would need something to say something more like, every time there's prime agricultural land for sale, the Board of Selectmen shall apply to, and I don't know if CPC is the place to go, but this is what the person thought, to allocate funds to purchase, pick a number, 25% of the land for sale, 50%, 100%. But we saw at town meeting a resounding feeling about the garden at Church Meadows. And I think that to be aware of that sort of resounding support for agricultural land, it's just not enough to have a sort of a cute byline that, oh yes, Littleton encourages open space and agricultural preservation. We need actual teeth into those words.
We may not want to do it, we may not want to limit it to purchase, though, because there are other ways to preserve agriculture,
Yeah.
including, acquiring lesser interest.
No, I think it's value, and I think it needs to be reworded again. I think
Yeah.
it's just, we
Yeah.
can't, yeah. So if,
We can
you
certainly.
want to take a shot at it?
We can certainly be more specific about what the goals are.
Yeah.
Because there's hundreds of acres that we could be preserving, and it would probably be well that, my suggestion would be that since we're gonna have to update the open space and recreation plan anyway by a year from now. Why? Because it's the requirement to be eligible for state grant funding for land acquisition projects, that if we task that committee, which frankly we don't have any members of, and need to do some more work on it.
So we need a land
Yeah.
acquisition committee?
Open space.
No, it's the Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee.
Okay.
Agricultural land is already in that plan, but I think it may be well to spend some, and I know that the open space plan addresses agricultural land, but I think that the real world dimension is that we need to look at what the prime land is in the plan and try to quantify it, and then begin to put some dollar figures around what, we think we might be able to do.
Yeah.
But we're going to quickly run out of CPA money.
Yeah.
Some other
We already
funding
are pretty
source,
much out of- Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
we'll be
just
out of it, yeah.
take a shot at rewording that.
Yeah, we can,
Yeah,
yeah.
all right.
Thank
With the
you.
intent.
Yeah.
Can I,
Yep,
can I ask a question? Can I talk about a specific property? Is that the wrong time?
I'd like to stay on track.
No.
And, hey, Bruins are playing. You wanna go now? You wanna talk now? All right. Funding opportunities, that talks about Church Mill specifically, so that was accomplished. Then we have something about conservation, recreation properties, land exchange, Morgan property, future land acquisitions. So Joe, go ahead now.
Just like Jenny has said, the number of people that she talks to, I have an enormous amount of people who have kids in programs in their short field, so I just want to make sure that when we purchase things in the future, that we make sure that we're also looking at some active recreational land that isn't restricted, can be used, because every time I go to a field now, and I'll have someone say, well, this field's being used for that, and that's being used for that, so,
Yeah.
so there is a need there. I'm just saying,
I agree.
when we look in the future, we have to carefully examine what we're doing,
Yeah.
the land.
Yeah.
Okay. Jim?
Yeah,
Same thing?
it's basically the same thing. Just the comment that the Morgan property's done. I mean, we're done with
Right.
that now, so, I mean,
Well, we actually, what you tasked the Park and Rec and the Conservation Commission to come up with a plan for the property, which they're,
doing.
well, yes, I'll say that, they're working on it. So,
But it just gets back to Joe's statement about.
It's not back to us yet.
Conservation land is fantastic, but if we can do some slice of it for some fields, it's always better. Get some use out of the land.
All right, Cooper Farm, that's all set. Cooper Farm item. Open space update plan. Yeah, no, sorry. So Jim, go ahead on this one here.
Yeah, open space, again, I think it was to Keith's point of the open space and recreation plan needs to be updated, and just to get the committee to rejuvenate itself and put together some updated language.
Okay. Alex?
Well, it just, what I'm talking about here is, viewing open space, as we view economic development, we view open space preservation in the same light. So that, one of the things that people like about this town is its balance. Well, then we should plan for balance. And we've heard a lot about heritage, we've heard a lot about preserving farmland and all those things. I think we have to roll that all into our economic development policy as well.
Okay. Solid waste.
All right,
Jim,
so.
is this one in the wrong column?
Well, no, it's, I think the wording was just mixed up here. What I wanted to say was to continue our discussion in regards to the recycling program that we have. We just started with Groton, Jim? So part of the transfer station is just to take another peek at it, make sure that we have the good contracts out there for all our recycling programs. Groton has been now the main transfer for recycling, where they bundle it and ship it out and store it until the market comes back up, so.
Just for plastic.
Just for plastic.
But I think there's a lot,
Metal and glass and paper.
yeah, I think there's a lot of going on there, and I know Jim works hard, and he does a lot of work with the contracts and trying to get us the best, so maybe at some point, again in the fall, we just get an update, with the change. I know that was a big deal, they switch over to Groton, I think, so.
That's basically all I
Yeah.
wanted to say,
Okay.
is, get the update.
Yep. All right.
You suggested to me to explore single-stream recycling. When I resided in the town of Air, we went from sorting your stuff to single-stream, and it was a dream.
Yeah.
So I think that people would probably recycle more if, in fact, they could put it all in one bin.
It costs more money.
That's true, but you don't get, you don't get as much back, and you have contamination, and this has been done. And those were the arguments against it, is that you don't get the same money, because you're paying someone else to sort it, and you lose a certain percentage to contamination, all the products mixing together, so. It has been done, whether or not we want to do it again, that's up to the board.
I had asked Keith to add this, essentially the same language into, for myself, the subject came up when I talked to a bunch of people, and most of them say that what they do down there is a pain, and they'd love to have single stream, and I think we should continually take a look at that as a goal.
Put that in your column. That says.
Oh,
I was
that
gonna
makes
say, that's
sense.
what happened, yeah.
That was my early.
That makes better sense, yes, because I have a big good with an exclamation point next to it. But it was Alex's comment.
Well, it's up, it's up to the board, you want to make it a goal, you want to make it a goal, that's fine, it doesn't.
So again, if I wouldn't make it a goal, I'd say have a discussion. That's all.
Have a discussion,
Explore it.
have a discussion of exploring
Yeah.
the potential of maybe going to single stream.
And we could even go to the town of Air and say,
Oh, yeah.
so,
How much money did you make or lose by switching?
We've done that. Actually, Mr. Crystal did that too.
But I think the point is a fresh look, and I think it's pretty clear that the townspeople would like us to get there. So I think we
The
have
ones
to
that you
take
talked to, though, I mean, it's pretty clear that there are people in town that want to get us there. That's not the whole town.
So you think, well, I don't want to
Let's
get
make
into
it have
that
a
debate.
discussion.
But I think most people would say that if you could go to the transfer station and do single stream, they would say, oh yeah, I'd like to do that. And we should keep it on the radar as where we want to go.
The only last comment I'll have, Mr. Chair, and that's it, is we started this 3 years ago? 3 years ago, and the cost of the transfer station has not gone up 1 cent.
Right,
since
it's cost
we-
to operate, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so, and that hadn't happened since
Oh.
you started paying, because every year it went up 10, 20,
Yeah.
25. So this is the first time since the transfer station's inception, nothing has gone up.
All right, you're done.
I'm done.
All right.
Sorry.
Tree removal standards policy.
have a policy written and adopted to ensure that there is no more removal of natural resources. For instance, trees and the like without stated purpose, third-party approval, and future plan. I think we all remember the massive amount of trees that were cut along Goldsmith Street when the road went in, and then subsequent to that, trees planted right under the power lines, which means at some point they'll need to be cut down too. There needs to be, in my opinion, and in the suggestion here of another person, there needs to be some sort of thought that goes into doing what we do. And when you cut down a 100-year-old tree, you can't get it back.
Here's just about the example that you mentioned, about the Goldsmith. That was a state project. They designed it, and they said which trees to cut, which were in there right away, in the town right away. They said which ones to cut and where to replace them, is what that example was. So I guess, and are you looking, well, I guess we can look at that further, but are you looking to have this policy go to private land?
Yeah, that was my question.
So you're gonna tell people what they can and can't do on their property as far as cutting down trees and things?
That sounds like something I would say. That's
Okay.
ridiculous.
Well, that's
I
what
would
it
never
says.
tell someone what to do on their
Well,
own
then, okay,
private
then how
land.
do you reword, how does this fit without,
There-
how is this different than what I said?
Okay, that we live in a municipality, and I understand that we are under the governance of the state. Why can't we have, as a policy of our town, something to the effect that we are more respectful of our natural resources? And to that end, we could even say to Goldsmith Street contractors, hold on a second, doesn't it seem sort of foolish to cut those trees down where there are no power lines and plant them here where there are? Can we make the point?
Well,
We can't make the
Well,
point.
Goldsmith Street's done, but.
Well, I understand that
That was-
Goldsmith Street is done.
We do that, don't we?
For engineering and for planning, that project was on the books for 10 or 12 years. Just a comedy of errors that happened. There are several laws in place. We have a scenic road bylaw, the state and the town, and there's rules for removal of trees that you have to get approval already.
Okay, so can we make every road in Littleton scenic?
Just
Can
have
you-
the
no.
top, though.
Distribution Drive, is that seen?
The answer is probably no,
Yeah.
that you can't, but.
But we could try.
Maybe not state roads, but you could.
Yeah, we can't regulate
But
state
it-
roads.
Yeah. So, we're into the right of way that you're talking about, right? What's that? And these are the processes for the right of way.
Yeah.
So we have that,
Go
yeah.
through a process to remove those. Again, it was just for planning and for engineering.
On that example of Goldsmith Street, yeah.
All those trees are pretty well shit,
Okay.
So it's in or out,
I
board?
think we should talk about it.
We spare that trip.
Okay.
You know, from what Jim said, it sounds like there's already regulations out there that just weren't adhered to in that particular project.
I know when they repaved Bruce Street, we had meetings and engineers come out and individuals come out to mark trees that didn't come down. So I think there's a process in
Did
place.
you do that on Neshoba too? So they just did,
We
you worked?
haven't done it yet. We did that on Harvard Road.
Yeah.
You have a tree committee. You could walk.
Sorry, yeah, at the end, please. So, in or out?
I think we leave it in for the purposes of identifying what is there in place so that we all understand it. So it may be an exercise that's over with fairly quickly, a presentation that goes through what the standards are there, and then we can decide if we want a policy above and beyond that.
So reword it to the effect of, you know, let's have a
Discussion?
review of existing procedures and laws. But
Review of existing regulations and a discussion about whether we want local regulations on top of that.
Yeah. Review policy, okay. Got it, Keith?
Got it.
All right, vehicle standards.
Have a policy written and adopted for vehicles operating in town with black smoke belching from the exhaust to fine these operators. Do we have a law on the books that if some vehicle is traveling on our roads with black smoke churning out, that the police can pull them over and give them a ticket? I don't think we do.
Well, how would you do it though? I'd hate to be the person that says, well, you have too much smoke coming out, so where's the cutoff point and how much smoke comes out? I understand the overall purpose, but
Yeah.
how would you ever govern it? Imagine being a policeman saying, well,
Well-
you have too much smoke coming out.
I don't know. I'm not sure, but there are times where you see vehicles drive through our lovely town who are just driving through and they are making a mess of the air.
I don't disagree with that.
Neither do I. I think it's more of a federal issue, though.
It is, the state sets emission standards,
Jerry,
not the
Jerry,
town.
yeah.
Well, if you're a police officer, then, you know, if there's a vehicle that looks like it's not gonna pass inspection, so.
Yeah. So,
Okay, another suggestion was a policy written and adopted to limit idling of vehicles to, pick your time, but 2 minutes was suggested, including town vehicles in this policy.
There's already a state law that governs that. I know, because I make the signs.
Is it 5 minutes?
It's 5. I forget what the law is, but I can get it. There is already a law for
So
it.
there's a law,
There's
a
a state
state law
Yes.
for 5 minutes, but we could
I
actually.
don't know if it's 5 minutes.
Well, whatever
I
the
don't know what
magic
it
number is, but we
you
could
don't
have
read the
it.
signs, you say you make the signs, you don't read them?
It's something like 5 minutes. There's also an EPA regulation, so many of these trucks will automatically shut
Shut
down.
off.
After you leave them idling, they will shut down, which has caused a lot of trouble with fire chiefs that are sitting out in front of a building trying to work a fire and their truck shuts off. Yep.
I never thought of that.
What are we doing? We working on a policy, or are there laws and regulations set?
The laws and regulations that are set are not sufficient. We should have better laws, right here in Littleton.
Okay, 10,
Thank you. Next one, also mine.
standards for commercial properties.
We should have a policy written and adopted to reduce overnight lighting of commercial properties. We have a glow coming from certain sections of Littleton, and our business people who operate there should turn their lights down at night.
Oh,
Planning board issues.
yeah,
I'm happy to have this be also bounced
just-
off a planning board, but
I mean,
you can't see the stars like you used to in Littleton because of the light pollution. We have high-tech everything, so the need for blaring lights on,
well, yeah, we gotta.
Commercial properties.
Well, yeah, whatever we do, we gotta bring in commercial property owners, because, I mean, they're paying the electricity, they're not doing it for no reason at all. They're not doing it just to ruin the starlight, you know, they're doing it for security or safety or something like that, so, I think if something like that gets referred, you know, it's just gonna be done. We don't have to solve it tonight, but, you know, there's two sides to every story, so.
It has been done, the town of Harvard did that for the Harvard University Observatory up there, they limited the light,
Well, there's a whole,
direction the light could go.
yeah, well, there's a whole dark, you know, what's it called, dark sky or something like that? Dark sky fund or something, all right.
also have a policy written and adopted to require new commercial development to be green, using 350.org as a guide.
What's 350.org, would you like to educate us?
350.org is a,
Bill McKibben's organization.
Clearinghouse of-
On climate change.
Mm.
350 being the goal for the number of parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere. We're at 400.
Yeah,
That's tall.
I mean, again, I get the point, but, you know, where do we draw the standards? Is it 350? Is it lead gold? Is it
well, it's
lead
past,
platinum?
it's past 350.
But whatever, I'm saying, if we're gonna put this on there, I mean, where do we draw the line? If we're gonna force these people to do that, I guess, I just don't.
I think if we're putting new stuff in town, the new stuff should be as green as possible.
That's fine, as long as you can afford to build it and make money.
Well, Fort Devens just had a contractor go in who made super green buildings, and the condominium sold immediately for cost. So it can be done, it just needs no comedy of errors and engineering problems, so
Yeah.
it can be
No,
done.
I'm just against putting anything that makes it harder to do business in Littleton. Or more expensive, so we'd have to look at that. But,
And I think we should look at it.
let's see, signed bylaw amendment, Joe.
I just, did someone on the board mention that the planning board brought it up?
Planning board brought it up at their last meeting.
Okay, so maybe that's the solution. Well, once again, it's disheartening to be in a committee that sits for a year and a half, and then you get your work done, and then there's never a final hearing on it, not even a hearing to say yes or no. So I think I went to the planning board and just stopped right there. I just want to see it brought up, whether they adopted or not, at least the courtesy of those people who went through the whole
Yeah.
year of, and a lot of hard work. I know Mr. Crystal was with me on that committee. We did a lot of work, and nothing's happened to it since.
And it's a real ugly sign in
So,
town.
do we really want, so how do you want to handle it? Do you want to leave something in there to get some feedback from them?
I'd like that to be, since they're hearing it now, then I'll just ask them, we can drop
Yeah,
it. Something.
Want to drop it?
No, I
Leave it on there so it doesn't fall off the radar.
I don't want to drop it.
All right, quarry closure plan.
Again, this is something that's going to happen in Littleton with the aggregate industry, so I know not much of this committee is met, but, and I think there's been a little bit of pushback from the planning board. I think we just need to keep focused, you know, and let's make sure that we, when the quarry does finally plan that, close it, that there's a plan in place to do it.
Yeah, it's getting close, 45 years, right? Yeah. You know what we're down to?
But what happens in that 45 years that no one knows what's happening?
Yeah, I know, I just.
I would suggest, since that quarry committee hasn't really met in a long time, I would suggest them, I think you and I went down 2 or 3 years ago. I would suggest the board adopt some kind of policy that would at least say, let's go down and examine what's happening every 2 or 3 years, so you actually see what's going on.
And even just to review the whole thing with the committee, Keith, if we could bring that up at a later time, you know.
Well, that, you want-
Rekindle that fire.
Just make that, just review the quarry plan closure and see,
Yeah.
get a status update of where
Right.
they're at and
Right.
and where the
See
quarry's
what,
at,
see
maybe.
what, see what,
maybe we
see
need
where the
that.
holdup is.
Yeah.
There's a holdup somewhere.
Well, the committee has never convened, so.
All right.
That's the whole done.
That's
That's a big problem.
Yeah, it's that you gave 2 seats and the chairmanship to the planning board for the quarry committee. And it
They
is
never
not
even made
con-
appointments.
It's not convened in about 2-3 years.
Do we want to restructure then?
Let's take a look at it, the way it was restructured now.
It may be as simple as just trying to kickstart it again. I think the reason that it didn't go anywhere is that the resistance from the landowner became, or it changed and became a little more significant. And it requires their participation to be successful.
Okay.
Aggregate was always willing to, they wanted,
Aggregate,
they
yeah,
want,
they
they
were
want a
on board.
committee. They really were looking forward to meeting, yeah.
All right, affordable housing. So we expect to have our goal assured of 10% to make sure there's no more unfriendly 40Bs through 2031. And this is back to what we were talking about mine here, saying develop a bylaw to require 15% of affordable units on housing developments over 5 units. But I think something that specific doesn't need to be spelled out now. I think we have that up above. And that's, I think, Joe, that's the same way you're going, without as many details.
And I'm the same.
Jim,
way.
you're going the
Just, you
same
know, we
way,
just need- we
and-
don't- Our housing authority really can't tell us, you know, or track our affordable housing, so that's a big issue. And that's, I know Magic has been going on the,
They were setting up a regional office. Yeah.
so.
Alex, did you want to speak to this? I know you have a couple of things, a couple sentences here.
Yeah, my idea was to sort of wrap this in together with needs for senior housing, affordable housing, and also the issue that Jim Carr brought up about with the relaxed regulations from the Board of Health, small lots being developed, maybe taking advantage of that situation, having developed to address affordable housing and senior housing.
That's a good point, Alex. That gets into the whole abutters program. That's what that discussion was evolved around.
All right, host community agreements for Reed Meadow and 15 Great Road. My goal is to develop a process or policy to distribute mitigation funds. Just looking down the road, I mean, we're gonna start getting this money in, I think we just have to have a way that we're gonna spend it before it starts coming in.
And I have that we should have a policy written and adopted to have a checks and balances approach to host community agreements and other like contractual agreements, that these would need to be ratified by a 2/3 vote at annual town meeting.
Anybody else? Keep it?
Combine them somehow.
Okay.
Yeah, you could have develop a policy on host community agreements.
Yeah,
As
okay.
part of that.
There you go.
You don't have to
Yeah,
agree on
maybe-
the specifics of what it does.
Can you put like those, can you get the gist of those in there so that we can have an idea where we're going? Okay. Master plan. Joe?
It's just simply, it's since 2002.
Yeah. It's time.
Is it time that we start looking into it?
Okay.
Once again, that would be one of these committees that would take a year or more to
Yeah.
get the work done, but I think it's probably time that we start looking at that.
Jenna?
Yeah, and
Same
same thing, form and appoint a committee to review and revise the master plan.
Okay. Code enforcement. Jenna?
Suggestion came in that we should create a tip line for code violations. The code violations, let's say Board of Health code violations, if there are things that are happening in town which otherwise are not under the purview of the police, because it's not a crime, but rather a violation of town code, that we would have some place to share that information.
Keith, how many of these you get today? You get these?
I'm sorry?
Is your line a tip line now? I just
No,
wondered, do you-
actually, the tip line is the building commissioner who is running around a lot on
Yeah.
tips.
Yeah. No, I just.
I don't mean gratuities.
Yeah.
So that's who generally addresses these issues as they're happening?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And, I mean, he has He has limited staff, he's got himself and,
Himself.
you know, so, and some inspectors, but that it's, enforcement does tend to be driven on complaints. There's no doubt about that.
Yep.
Board of Health has, obviously, they have their help,
Yeah.
their number and the agent, so do we need, does anyone feel we need a consolidated line, or do we feel we're good? Keep it?
I think we're good.
Okay. You good?
If
It's yours.
if there's a way to do it, I know that someone had said they tried calling the Board of Health and the number didn't.
I never try calling the board.
Okay,
I just go right to Roland.
so Roland is now going to get every call from the people
Sure,
who
yeah,
will now
or call
hear
Roland's,
this.
or Roland's administrative assistant, who
Okay.
is the clearinghouse for Roland and the Board of Health.
Yeah.
Fine,
and the
very good.
ZBA.
Okay, done?
And does a great job.
Okay, rezone depot land, Joe?
Just real quickly, I know this is a planning board issue, but I do want to bring it up to the planning board. There's a peninsula of land that runs between the railroad tracks and Taylor Street, and it starts at the gates and runs all the way down Taylor Street. As it gets further down Taylor Street, and it's industrial B. And industrial B allows for outside storage. It's my suggestion, in the area of the depot itself, which is zoned business on both sides, even though you don't have business on Howard Avenue, it is zoned business, would be to zone that business. It wouldn't change Mr. Erickson's, what he does right now, because he's grandfathered, but in my viewpoint, when he should sell sometime, wouldn't it be nice if we could have something there that would remain cleaned up, because right now, it's obviously an eyesore and a mess. But everyone goes through town and talks about, and takes pictures, I've seen it on Facebook, what is this place, type of thing. So, once again, my concern is that nothing can be done in enforcement right now. And I would suggest just zoning it from the tracks down to Wickham Avenue, not any further, because further down is industrial B and it's fine, but in that one area there, I think it would just help to clean up in the future. Of course, that might not even happen in my lifetime, but at least it would be
rezone it as,
rezoned as business.
Yeah.
So it would be the same on both sides.
Oh, just so it's not, just expand the zone across the street.
It's just that little peninsula goes down, zone of business.
Yeah, so it's not a new zone. Okay. All right, let's see. Information and communication. Communications with town boards. Joe?
It's a very, very general statement, but if we don't have communications between boards, then things go awry. I think that's, even in the signed bylaw type of thing, we have to be able to have communications that are going back all the time and to exchange ideas.
Jen?
Well, and this echoes what Alex had to say about boards meeting together. I actually heard a suggestion that we should encourage intra-board representation for this upcoming year, meaning we would go to one another's meetings and we would encourage other boards to come. So every time we meet, a member of the planning board is here, a member of the library trustees, a member of the school committee, and we would extend the same courtesy by going to their meetings. And I know that it's more meetings, and we already meet a lot, but it might promote the synergy among the various town boards, commissions, and committees.
That's good. All right, voter information. Jenna?
Yeah, I would like to form and appoint a committee to work with the voter participation committee, maybe as a subcommittee, in the drafting of plain text language to accompany each and every warrant article and ballot question, which is written in legalese, because while there are several attorneys in town, most of us are not. And writing things with whereas and heretofore and in Latin is hard for well-educated, lovely voters to understand. So switching to plain text is something that's done at statewide ballot initiatives. They write, if you vote yes, this is what will happen. I think we need the same thing.
It's all well and good to keep it there, and it's a good discussion, but the voter participation committee has already begun discussing this particular, your comment.
Terrific.
About that, and specific things that they looked at. So, we can have an update about that and go
Okay.
further with it, but it's already being worked on.
Very good.
Public relations and communications. Joe?
This, I don't know how we accomplished, but I put it in here because sometimes as a board member, I'm astonished when sometimes things get seen certain ways and there was no real big subject going on. It doesn't need the uproar that was caused. And I put down here the slot pile as a fine example, because as a board member, seeing how it was handled, I have no problems with to this date, because the one meeting happened very early, maybe September or October last year. And like many businesses that come in, and I wish I had brought a statement that Savas made last year, where he was talking about combining the light and our budget together, and you have a $64 million company. And there are times where a business is going to come and just start to talk to you about it and say, I'm not even sure I'm going to do this. We did it with IBM, we did it with FIBA, and nothing was said. Well, the slot pile came in and they said, you know something, we might do this. We didn't hear another word from them for 3 months. They approached us in the first week of December, I think it was, December 4th or something, and said that they would want to meet again. And it was mostly department heads that met. At that meeting, I was there, Alex had wanted to go, I think all of Greg went. At that meeting, there was never any discussion on that we wanted the slot pile at all. It was just gathering information. As soon as that meeting was done, Tom Harrington, our town administrator, Greg and I went in the other room and say, we got to be careful on how this is handled. And it was agreed that we were going to have a meeting set up. Keith would make a formal announcement right, maybe
For Christmas,
Before Christmas.
the rollout was to happen.
Yeah.
Ironically, the day that they essentially told us that they weren't going forward.
Yeah.
And because they'd never told us they were officially, they'd never given us permission to officially say anything about it, that it took them another week or so to actually officially admit that they weren't going forward, but it was dead the moment that it went public.
The other point I want to make is that at that meeting, it was actually talked about that if we were to go forward, we had a schedule where we were going to have a meeting, because we wanted the townspeople to be informed, we wanted the townspeople to make the decision. This wasn't something that we would even consider pushing on the town, when we probably felt down deep at that point too, that probably the townspeople didn't want it. So as far as the board goes, I was, call it upset when you couldn't handle it, in my opinion, any better professionally than the way we did, and we had that uproar that came after that.
Yeah. That's just one uproar. I mean, I had a friend come up to me and say, oh, well, you guys need to get along better. I'm like, have you seen our meetings? Have you ever been to our meetings? And he said, no. And, we get along like this 99.9% of the time, but there's one, 2-minute clip or something that, the room gets riled up, and, that's what we're judged on. So it's a marketing campaign, it's social media again, and, it's something that we have to do. We have to, I don't know, it's something that it'd be nice to do, is to find a better way, but I mean, I don't know what the answer is.
Our TV right now, we're open, anybody can come to the meetings.
But this won't get posted. It'll be when you raise your voice or I get testy, that's what gets posted.
Right. Well, I don't look at that stuff anyways, but to the actual goal.
My wife does, that's the problem, she wakes up Tuesday morning, what are people saying? Luckily, she realizes people know, she doesn't believe half what she reads
Right.
now, so.
I think to get back to Joe's point in regards to what type of objective, it's that community involvement piece and voter participation piece and getting people activated. That's a tough one, Joe, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for it. That's-
I do. You can install the necessary technology so that people can Skype into an IM during BOS meetings, WebEx, and Twitter feeds. You could have people communicate with us with the technology that we have, so that they don't feel as though they need to be present in this room.
But how is Skype, IM, and stuff different from TV?
Because it's only one way.
Oh, you want to have that? Oh.
Feedback.
What about the open meeting law issue with, we didn't adopt a piece that, if.
That remote participation only pertains to the voting members.
Okay, all right.
So,
I mean, we didn't even pass that, so that if one of us isn't here, we can't participate.
Well, you said this would be a solution to that, but I don't necessarily will, so we can take them separately. I think there's always going to be people who are
And
angry
again,
out
you
to
don't
get
have to
somebody.
resolve the issue.
Yeah,
All you
that's
have to
true,
do
yeah.
is say that you want to look at how to
Yeah.
improve
Yeah, that's
public
true.
relations and communication.
Thank you, Keith, for keeping me on the rail.
And then
So-
you can have your
There was
robust
a word used,
discussion.
though, that I want to make sure that, or, you know, at least voice my opinion that we don't use, and that's marketing. You know, the onus is on us to be forthcoming enough that the public's not upset with us. We don't have to market that. We just have to be, the word mindful is an excellent word.
See, I find
I
it's,
think that something like the slot parlor, it's a given that townspeople are gonna be really excited about this sort of thing. And we have to be better at predicting that and acting in a manner that they're more informed in those kinds of hot button issues.
well, I agree with Joe, we didn't do anything wrong on the slot parlor, and we took heat for it, so marketing may have been the wrong word, but, I mean, I don't know, it's just be nice not to be judged on.
I think Keith
certain
had
things.
the objective,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, including, improve public relations, communications, explore use of social media technology, et cetera. So,
That's
and then
good.
you can have your discussion on it.
Littleton's 300 celebration. Joe?
No, that was just a general statement. Things coming up, this board might be asked to support in different ways, and we want to be prepared, because it is an important date. Obviously, it doesn't happen that often, and careful plans are being made.
Okay.
Same thing,
All right.
that's pretty much the same wording you did there.
Code of Ethics, Conflict of Interest Law, and Training. Jim?
We brought this up, I believe it was last May, updating the code of conduct. Got pushed back to the back burner and nothing was done.
Yeah.
I think it's, we need to update it.
Okay. Alex?
I think the first start of that is training so that everybody is fully aware of what the laws are, so that they can maintain understanding and thus compliance. And I think that's where the disconnect is right now, and that's where we should start. And I don't think we should update any code until we actually understand everything we're supposed to understand.
Do they do on-site trainings, Keith?
For the conflict of interest law, the state would have it.
We had to do something a while back, we had to do online. Did you have to do online, yes?
Yeah.
So
I
it's
did
there.
it.
So that's, so
Twice
the,
we've had to-
I mean, but
Right.
there are, the state will send trainers. Typically, they like to do it if the host community would be inviting the community, surrounding towns.
yeah.
Sure.
We were
We've
going
been,
to Shirley
we've
for
been
one
invited
time,
over
too,
to,
yeah.
I
I
think,
went to
the Air
Groton.
Town Hall recently.
All right.
so.
All right, but anyway, I mean, I'm with Jim on here, so I think that should stay in there. Alex's, it seems like it's been there, I don't know if we want to agree to have on-site training, or if we want to just explore, how about explore on-site training sessions? Something like that.
Well, the training's out there and it's available, and there's a lot of discussion about the ethics laws and who did this and who did that, and a lot of it's based on not understanding what the laws are, and I think we as a board of selectmen should have a full grasp of what they are.
Suggestions that were brought to my attention: study the potential prohibition of developers to sit on the zoning board of appeals. Include language in the code of ethics that prohibits board members and the businesses of board members from bidding in a contract if that contract was voted on during the board member's term of office. And include language in the code of ethics that addresses appearance. I understand we're in summer casual now, but some people are concerned about the eye rolling and the body language that is expressed at this board. Whether we can just have a gentle reminder not to interrupt and roll eyes at one another and at the public. I don't know if we can institute a policy for that, but it would be nice that that we not only behave, that we dress, not to Keith's standards, but we dress, and we also are welcoming of one another and the public. So those are my suggestions under ethics. You're just glazing over at this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't wanna get, I mean, I said something earlier, I rolled me, so I know. You know,
I rolled you?
Yeah, you did, so,
Did I?
yes. So studying the
You must have said
potential.
something preposterous.
Yeah, it was when I cut Dawn off. Study the potential prohibition of the zoning development. I don't, do you want to investigate that? Is that possible? Is that, I mean, we have such a small pool now of people to sit on the ZBA.
I don't understand why you say that. We have such a small pool of people. We've got an entire community of people.
Look at the boards. I say it because you look at the boards, it's the same people over and over, it seems. But I don't know, is that something we want to look at?
Which one? I think that's what she
8B.
is looking at.
Study the prohibition of developers to sit on ZBA.
It's illegal.
That's what, that's my thought. Can you do that, Keith, you know?
Well, you're the appointing authority for the zoning board
Well,
of appeals,
yeah.
and you can appoint or not appoint anyone you want to. So, no one has a right to serve on
All
the
right.
zoning board of appeals.
Nobody what?
No one has a right to serve on the zoning board of appeals, only
But can we have a
Those who you
prohibition saying the
appoint.
selectmen cannot appoint anyone who's a developer? I mean, first they have to define developer to sit on the ZBA, can you do that?
Simple policy.
But the term,
It's
Well, to study the
prohibit
potential,
people-
study the potential, what's wrong with studying the potential? I
Yeah,
mean, we can find out, we can answer all these questions we're asking
Yeah,
tonight.
you can look at it, again, you don't have to resolve it
Yeah.
tonight, but if it's something you wanna look at, then, put it on the list.
Then the second one here, include language of the code of ethics that prohibits board members. I mean, all this, I know this is on the conflict of interest, I don't know if we need to, I don't know, is that something we wanna do
We
is
can
to?
look at the code of conduct too, maybe that can be included in that.
Okay.
All right, so blend that in with the code of
Oh,
conduct?
sorry. I think it should say the code of conduct, not the code of ethics.
Okay.
I think that
Yeah,
that
it's
should.
called the code
Yeah.
of conduct and
Yes.
ethics, the local one.
It is. Okay, all right.
Okay.
We could call it the dress code of conduct.
The dress code of conduct. Sorry if, I know you want to flip the page. The Volunteer Appreciation Program, we have recently had two pillars of our community die. Marge Harvey and Ray Grandy were both wonderful community volunteers, and I would like to see our community perhaps consider naming some sort of Citizen of the Year in Marge's memory and in Ray's memory for two people selected or voted upon or suggested or something, so that we can have citizen involvement and citizen participation awarded in the memory of these two people.
I had something similar without the names last year, and again, just never bubbled to the surface for me. And there were reasons for and against it, so if you want to throw that one back on there and add in the names, and I don't see a problem with that. I don't see myself getting to it this year, though.
Well, I can do it.
No, I know, that's what he's putting on there. He's putting, yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, I said I don't have a problem putting it on there.
Okay.
Yeah. Open meeting law training. Alex?
I think all the points here have been actually points that were made previously in other areas.
Okay.
We talked about collaboration, we talked about consensus, the balance, the cause and effect in economic development, and holding all of that. This just sort of wraps it all together as in a sort of vision statement.
Okay.
The one thing that's in there, is hold government growth in check, that should be no surprise.
Yeah,
to
right,
anybody.
come on.
Yeah.
Arrange
we're
for
on the
review
top
of training of open meeting law.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'm a step ahead.
Okay.
That's
So that's good, that pretty much stands away.
That too is just wrapped into, I think there's misunderstanding about what the law says and what to do, and we need to have full grasp of it and follow it.
Okay, term limits, Jenna?
It has been suggested that we have a policy written and adopted to establish term limits for elected and appointed boards, commissions, and committees.
There are term limits right now, right? No, they're just, they're term, just terms, not term
No.
limits, right?
No.
No term.
I think it's good, I don't think it should be a policy, I think it should be a bylaw. It should be something the town votes on, not us.
Okay. Well, however, one could get it from where it's not to where it could be. Right, because your first order of business should be to limit my time sitting at this table.
I am not here to limit anybody. I'm here, we're all self-limiting.
Yeah. Library trustee
Hey, I'm
meetings.
thankful to have people step up no matter what their,
I don't,
Whatever their
I don't
thoughts are.
disagree necessarily with this board, but when you start talking about other commissions where sometimes it's hard to find members, are we limiting ourselves on certain commissions by saying, can only be on for a while and then?
I think we have 9,000 people in town, probably 5,000 of which are adults who
Well, I
could stay
understand that.
for.
what's the
you know,
voting?
so-
What's the registered voters? 3,400, 3,500?
Oh, no,
No,
it's
it's 6,200.
6,400? Oh,
6,000 people.
Yeah.
I understand that, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, there are times when we have,
We still have vacancies on committees.
Yeah, no.
Well, it's an issue that's come up as a proposed best practice in the Council on Aging and of whether or not to limit the number of terms that a COA board member can serve on. And frankly, on that one, I have to say, in deference to this board, the discussion is occurring first at the Council on Aging for them to decide whether they want to have that imposed on themselves. And if so, then they would recommend it to you, which I think is far safer than you telling them that their terms are limited. So if you want to do it, I think there's a cooperative process that you'd have to engage all of the affected boards in it, because you've got a lot of long-time service. I mean, in Provincetown, we had a charter which had term limits. It took a charter, and we don't have a charter in Littleton. It took the adoption of the charter to actually be able to enact term limits. I'm not aware where it's been done in just the town bylaw. But again, the legal framework is something else you could look at. And even in that process, we went back and exempted, for example, the Board of Assessors, who have to get certified by the state, and you have to have a number of certified assessors to set your tax rate. And we were finding if we had to bump them off after 3 successive terms, then we didn't have qualified people to set a tax rate. So there's a whole myriad of issues you could look at.
Alex, what do you think? Just as the longest serving member of this board. I'm just curious.
What do I think?
Yeah.
I think that I should have served 2 terms, and that should have been it, and nobody else should have served any more than 2 terms. I think if we want diversity in our government, then we have to have diversity. And we do a lot of recycling in town, and it's all well and good to say it's out of necessity because we don't have volunteers. But if we just keep putting the same people in there, there's no need for volunteers to step forward and show their interest. So, yeah, I would vote myself out of a job.
I would too.
Well, do you
I
want
prefer
to-
myself personally.
Well, I would like to, I think if we say have the policy, that means we all support it. I would say more of investigative policy, because there's term limits every 3 years.
Yeah, but that's sort of a trite.
I would say investigate more than have.
But Ted, that's a trite reduction of the fact that it is somewhat daunting to be an unincumbent and running against 2 incumbents. If Joe had to have resigned because he was 2 terms up, right, if we had something in place, it would have been less daunting for me to run, or me and that
Yeah.
guy, and that woman, and that
Yeah.
person.
But now you have the advantage. Joe is, look, we have great people in town that serve on every board. And if we want to keep returning great people to the board, then we should have the opportunity. That's where I'm at. If we wanted to develop this as a goal, I would just request that we change it to investigative policy, because if we say have a policy, that's saying we're already wanting term limits, and that's not clear by this board.
Well, you asked 2 people, myself and Alex. How do you know it's not clear with?
Because me, it's not clear by everybody on this board if just one person saying they don't want it. So, but I didn't say no one else can speak up.
I agree with you, Ted, in that we have to talk about this.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can say that the end goal is we will have it, but we have to have a frank discussion about the merits of it.
And that's why I say investigate or discuss, rather than establish a policy. That means, if we say establish a policy, that means we all support it.
In all reality, for all the elected officials, the person that's going to decide whether we have term limits are the people that are out there.
Yeah.
My only concern is putting the term limits on, the committees and all those boards are, appointed boards. I just have a concern that, you know, we cycle through these folks and then we have a lot of vacancies. We still have vacancies out there.
The other thing is, you know, as far as policy, as I started out to say, I don't think it's up to us five to decide this. This is for town meeting, so I would say investigate a, you know, bylaw amendment or whatever it is. It's not up for us
I
to
would agree to
decide.
that.
Yeah, I don't think we could start by
Yeah, I would-
legislating down. I think we have to start at the top and then go down. So we have to decide what's going to happen with elected officials and use that as the guide for appointed officials under those elected officials.
We as in the town, or we as in the board.
The town is going
Yeah.
to decide what we do.
Yeah.
And then we take that lead to craft policy beyond there.
Well, let's leave it on there then and see where it goes with, I would suggest rewording. We can discuss that more if the rewording comes up.
So,
Consider,
yeah, how are we with consider establishment of term limits for elected and appointed boards? Does that
Investigate
say-
legal framework, that kind of stuff, yeah.
All right. Did you have something, Joe? No. All right. Jenna?
Arts and Culture Committee, we should consider forming and appointing a committee to take an inventory of local artisans and assess what Littleton can do to support and encourage their work and creativity. There are lots of them were third Thursday, so that's one good thing that we already have, where you've got people showing up, but there are others, and we should, I think, have an Arts and Culture Committee.
We have a cultural council, which whose duties include administering the state grants that are available to local cultural institutions. I don't know if this is something we'd want to consider, rather than have two cultural
Sure.
committees, maybe task the cultural council with this.
Look at the, whatever their bylaw or whatever their committee charge is to.
Yeah, I mean, the
maybe
statutory
look into
definition for
that.
what they do, for the framework
Right.
for the grant program, but that doesn't mean that they can't be given a related assignment.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
All right. Cleanup program.
This was yours, wasn't it?
Joe? I had it a couple years ago, and again, never got off the ground.
but
Yeah.
I had already mentioned what happened at Littleton Depot. I think that's a fine example. And I know that people that were working on down there were also mentioning it, make it town-wide.
Mhm.
I think Jenna points that out, and I'll let Jenna take it from there, because
Yeah.
I've already talked about the depot.
Yeah, townwide.
Yeah.
There, I took it. Yeah, it'd be
All right.
great. I mean, we see other towns do it, they do cleanup days. We could do it too.
You got it, Keith?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Wellness program. Jenna?
Someone suggested encourage Walk a Mile Day to get residents out of their homes and onto Littleton streets for both health and community connection. We could all just be told, go for a walk and see who you bump into. Pick a day.
Or take a hike, so.
Take a hike, that's another one.
Don't put
So-
words in my mouth. Because you know that's coming out as me. It's me on social media tomorrow. Ted told everyone to take a hike.
Now let me check the tweets here.
Yeah, they're going yet? The bloggers here lighting up? I don't even count
No
it.
problem.
Did you walk a mile?
I do every day.
Excellent.
Take my dog.
Yeah, we have a wellness coordinator through the
Sure.
Council on Aging right now.
Okay. Joe, quick one.
We've already talked about support Thursday, that's going well, so I'll pass on that.
Okay. Vision and community. How many more pages, geez?
We're done almost.
Almost.
We're almost done.
Alex?
I made those points before. This is really sort of a meeting of everything together to craft a vision of the community we want. So I think this is just part of the points that I've been making throughout in the other topics.
All right. Jenna?
And for myself as well, I think that we need to, as a community, put some visioning on us, and that comes from the people, and perhaps a townwide survey could be drafted and distributed through our electric bills. And we could get some ideas as to how to define our town.
Okay, can you keep going? You got two more in there. Three
Well,
more.
I mean, it's, that's
She
sort
said
of,
she's
those are ideas to that, some ideas about. All those sorts of ideas would fall under, I think, visioning.
Okay. So you don't want to discuss
The official.
metric system?
The metric system.
Or second language?
Yep, these were suggestions made by townspeople, and I included them. Or even finding a sister town domestically abroad that's 300 years old. And if we found one abroad, perhaps the townspeople would underwrite the Board of Selectmen to travel to said sister town. Right? And it's going to be in Italy.
Let's back that goal.
So are these going to show up on the next one? Are these part of that, or are these all going to be dropped off and included as
No,
part of the
I
vision?
think that when ideas came in, these were some of the ideas, and I think the only way to assess ideas is to ask other people for theirs as well. So a townwide survey, I believe, could get the idea churn.
Yeah, all right, but there's the other things, research other towns' methods of government, is that a goal or is that an idea? I don't know, I'm just not following. Are those things that are gonna drop off on the next one, or are they staying on? Are those goals?
I think seeing how other towns do it can be informative rather than starting with a blank slate. We could go to Harvard and say, so how do you educate your children? And, to whatever the cost is for your kids there, and why do they do so well? And what sort of best practices do you have in place? Or go to Carlisle and say, okay, so this is your tax rate, how do you plan and zone so that your town looks the way it does? So using other towns as information sources.
Oh, then I see, consider in the vision, the adoption of the metric system in the language.
Correct.
I see,
Consider that
in the vision. In the vision, okay. All right. Oh, Alex, I'm sorry, on the next page, on the same one there, that's all the same? Conduct an update?
Yeah,
Second page, I didn't see that went over.
Yep.
You're all set on that? All right.
Yeah, the bottom part just talks about the unintended consequences thing that I already spoke about.
All right, let's see, develop 10-year infrastructure plan and explore Department of Public Works. Joe, you have the chair. I'm not talking about this one, so.
I'd like to keep all those extended ones at the bottom, just keep them on there as secondary goals. That's what my suggestion would be, they're all good.
Did you want to speak on this?
Well, yeah, just a little bit, and, not to pick on Jim or anything else, but, in this world, boundaries that are drawn on a map are becoming ever more fuzzy. And even back when I was fire chief, we were talking about whether there would be a shared fire chief position among towns that work well together. And I think we should be very aware that we have neighbors, and we may limit the size of government, limit the cost of government, and improve services with shared or regional approaches to things.
Done with that? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So, that's it. That's our goals. And now we will open it up to public input, provided there's nothing left from
Good
the
job
board.
staying the whole time.
All right, I will open with Mr. MacGyver,
Oh, okay,
as I cut you off earlier, so I will give you the first opportunity.
sure. And, yeah, I realize some of this is written quickly and some of the stuff comes out negative and that isn't the intent. There's some good ideas, there's some new ideas, there's some old ideas. Just quickly, you talked about PR, social media, self-evaluation. What's really needed is not self-evaluation, but public evaluation, it's feedback. And it isn't election time, it isn't politics, it's maybe it happens in fall time. You do need feedback from other people, and even though there is an intent, I know being on several different boards, yeah, there's sort of a collective vision stuff, and you work for various things, and it's sort of natural almost to be dismissive of other comments, but you have to be a little more open to it. And being on any board, you get attacked for stuff, and that's part of the job, and you just accept that. And you have to be open, that's public service. Secondly, on the same thing on the code of conduct, I know one of the concerns there is that people are appointed felt that they might fall under it. People elected separately, there were sort of issues. I think it has to be adapted, so if it's even aspirational, that, everyone sort of falls under it. And even though I know it isn't meant in a mean intent, but I know on this board, people have been called communists. On one of the boards I serve on, that happens. My board, it's actually worse. People's ethnic backgrounds are commented on, religion. And, yeah, here, it was meant as a joke, slamming political party. None of that should be allowed on any of the boards, and even if it's aspirational, so be it, because people do get intimidated, and, yeah, even though that isn't the intent, that does happen. Just quickly, I know other people want comments, so I'm just, and I'll make more comments on it when it gets refined. But just looking at some of the things, there should be more TV broadcasts of all the boards, all the boards. Something that's very easy to do, and it's been talked about, it hasn't been done, is that people want notification of the agendas for any meeting, they should be able to get that. And I know the different ways to go about it, I've talked to some of the people who have sort of explored it, but even if you had a Google Groups or Yahoo Groups, you can set it up that people can subscribe to it, and anyone wants the agenda coming up when it gets released can get it automatically versus keep them going to the site to see what's there. That would, I think, help with more participation. There's one I'll skip just because it's going to go down the rabbit hole. We don't want to be there, but it's important. Just quickly about saying every parcel of land that's acquired should have some active recreation. It really, you need to look at the land. Some cases it may all be active recreation, like we'll have 300 King Streets that way. Other places it may be all farming, or it may be a mix. You really have to look at the characteristics of the land. And I understand, I keep on pushing for the open space plan, people to be together. It's really open space and recreation. I keep on saying park and recreation should have the preferences and bring it to the document. That's never happened. They claim they have it. I mean, it's coming together, and that's very important. It's for everyone to source out the needs and goes ahead. So, I think the people who are interested in space are also interested in recreational space. We know it's limited, but there's concern when it's targeted on top of agricultural land for the reasons already mentioned. But yeah, that's a community problem, and we all need to work together on that. Just quickly, we have a tree committee of professional landscape architects, landscape designers. Why doesn't anyone use them? I mean, their services are fairly expensive when they're for profit, and they donate their services. The front of the library had a well-recognized landscape architect design it. Because it wasn't maintained, not the problem of the designer, it's now being gutted and something else is happening. I mean, at Goldsmith Street, okay, the state does screwy things, we all know that, but you can influence it. And you have people that can be involved. Those are resources that are available and free, and willing people use them. And this is a pejorative comment. This is, this is a problem-solving thing. Other things I'll leave off, because I think I'll take a direction I don't want to go in.
Okay.
But people will comment on these items, and maybe even the things you dropped off, but it's important to listen to them, because they're good, solid comments. People are working in the trenches. And just quickly, having sort of the planning board background, having served in conservation commissions and boards I help, I look at some of the stuff, some of it's in other committees and maybe working with them, and some of the stuff suggested may be well-intentioned, but some of it's illegal. It's a mix, but it's a beginning, and in that spirit, we should move ahead, but have more of these sessions to refine it. So that's all I have to say.
Jerry, I cut you off too. You want to go ahead?
Sure, I've got quite a few of them. On 1B under sewer.
Hold on. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I think one of the biggest issues is it's becoming a fine line between an advisory committee and advocacy. The best meeting I ever went to was the last one that the sewer committee held, because they really got a lot of information out there.
The presentation.
The
public
presentation.
Okay.
It's like before that I saw this massive gold-plated, we're going to be an energy plant, and this and that and that. And finally they pruned it down a bit. We need more of that.
Okay.
The reason why people are so concerned at this point is, once the $500,000 for the study is spent, you're going to start having that whole pressure of, if we don't take the next step, the money's wasted.
Right.
Under section 5 on tree cutting, I'm glad it was clarified. When I first read this, my jaw hit the floor, because I pictured substitute bylaw for policy, and the next thing you know, we all got to go Mother May out to cut a tree in our backyard. My recollection on Goldsmith Street was, a lot of those trees weren't in very good shape. I seem to recall an awful lot of dead, dying, decayed. But I like your idea of saying, well, if the tree committee is available as a public resource, make that available to help homeowners make rational decisions. under vehicle standards, I'm pretty sure it's almost impossible for the town to set its own standards. I believe the EPA says you either have to follow federal or California. If Massachusetts can't set its own emission standards, the town of Littleton sure as heck can. Perhaps what you can look into is what can the police do in terms of obvious visible emissions? Is that sufficient grounds, for example, to pull somebody's inspection sticker? As far as vehicle idling, same thing goes. If every town was able to set its own motor vehicle operation standards, it'd be chaos for all of us. Under green building, I looked at 350.org. That's an activist environmental site. I didn't see a single building standard or anything of that nature. I saw goals like stop the Keystone Pipeline, beat up on the fossil fuel industry. And I agree with Ted that it's a great idea to say, quote unquote, build green, but if you somehow impose it, you're just going to drive business out of town. That also goes for one of your goals under Section 10, which is somehow requiring big retailers to buy local. I can't see how that could possibly work. And correct me if I'm not wrong, isn't there something called a Commerce Clause in the Constitution?
There is a Commerce Clause in the Constitution.
But yeah, I'm just saying, how can you tell Donalds where they're going to buy their vegetables or Littleton Lumber where they're going to buy their lumber? Under the comments about Dave Erickson, yeah, I can appreciate why people would put snide remarks up on social media. I wonder how many of those people ever went into a store and saw what he did with that to what a lot of people would consider a pile of scrap iron. I mean, the guy's an artist.
Oh,
No, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And one thing that never came up is maybe we should have a policy on making these meetings and town meeting a cell-free zone. I've seen hearings where one time a person was up presenting to the board, their phone rings right in the middle of it. Hello?
Keith,
And the last one on private ways, perhaps that goal should morph into coming up with a way to get these private ways accepted as public ways. I've talked to some folks that live on these roads, and they're told, oh, you gotta bring it up to today's planning board standards, not the standards in effect when the road was laid out. And a lot of those roads, you can't cut the 40-foot right of way in the 24-foot road bed. Maybe you should discuss with the planning board a means by which you can bring the road up to a lesser standard, perhaps with restrictions on further development, but good enough that the town can take it over and maintain it. A lot of those roads, whether they're private or public, are accidents of history.
Mr. Crystal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to say that I think this has been a very upbeat exercise. I mean, the feeling I get listening to the construction of the goals for next year contains a lot of really useful things. And I know in my case, and I'm not saying everybody thinks the way I think, but all over the world now we have people who aren't really trusting of what is governance is being done to them. And one of the steps that we see here tonight is this exercise. This has been an excellent thing in my opinion. It certainly covers a lot of things that I take near and dear to me. I'd like to make two specific comments about the content here tonight. One of them is that I was not happy with the fawning of the state politicians over the train station, which cost $11 million. Now I've gone up to that train station, I've walked it, it's 3 minutes to go from where you put in your money to the platform. You could land a Piper Cup on that platform. Now the question really is, for $11 million, we started with 200 parking places in the dirt. Now we still got 200 parking places, but they're numbered and they have bars on them. And we got a train station that'll handle 2,000 people an hour. Now the parking place is already filled up. I was down there 2 days ago. It was filled on last Thursday. So the question is, what are you doing about the 200 parking places? There's got to be more. And we don't own the land, and to me, that is something that's got to come up. We need more parking there.
Okay.
And anyway, And the issue with sewer, I think, see, the no sewer people, of which I am one, they're sort of a group of citizens who are doing what they think the public's work. You see, we're representing the public. The boards are thinking about municipal sewer. Now, personally, I like sewer, because I flush, periodically, it's a great thing to have. So I'm not against sewer. I'm confused by the term, where the sewer committee always says, oh yeah, we're sewer people. But the no sewer people aren't against sewer. They're against municipal sewer. Now, we have sewer in town. We've got the Point over here. We've got IBM. These are private, profit-motivated financial models that work. I love that. Taxpayers aren't responsible for them. Now, because of this rift between sewer and no sewer people, to get us to sit down and talk together seems pretty difficult. I mean, I think it's a nice dream, but I think we're so far apart. The language, you don't even use the same language. Anyway, that's just my comment, and I thank you for that.
All right. Mr. Clancy?
Thank you, Mr. Doucette. Firstly, I'd just like to echo Mr. Crystal's comments in terms of the exercise itself, and I appreciate the board giving the public this opportunity and making these arrangements. So I share his view on the meeting itself. Secondly, I did want to add, there was an item 1D pertaining to efforts to clean up storefronts in the downtown area. And I would just offer to the board, and perhaps people have considered this, but before moving to Littleton, I was involved in a group in Boston called Hyde Park Main Streets, which was, and there are Main Streets programs in all of the neighborhoods in Boston. This program was developed by the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and basically the idea is to support local downtown areas to revitalize the business districts. And it worked well in Boston because Mayor Menino sort of persuaded large employers to be corporate buddies to these groups. And in the case of Hyde Park, Clary Square, where I live, we had grant money available to local businesses, primarily to enhance the signage. So we had uniform signage in our downtown business area, and it did enhance the look of the area. We had similar problems to Littleton Common in the sense that we had a big parking problem. But this program is available, or was available. I don't know the extent to which it's still active. Mr. Bergen may have heard of it. One of the things that has to happen is, in our case, we had to form a 501c3 charitable organization, which was promoted to promoting historic preservation. Whether that's still available, I don't know. My understanding is that the IRS these days is taking a hard look at some of these 501 organizations, and so you may not be able to get 501c3 for that type of a purpose. But I do think it's worth looking into, and I would just offer that to the board.
Okay. Mr. Simone?
I'd like to start just with a question. Again, I echo the sentiments that Mr. Clancy and Crystal have shared with respect to the importance of the exercise. Mr. Clancy, Mr. Crystal, Mr. MacGyver, Jerry, they've all gone through a long list of comments. You haven't responded to any of them. Do you plan to?
Well, we sat here for, 2.5 hours and discussed them, and we made all our comments, so now I'm allowing the public comments to come in. So we're taking comments, that's what we're doing. So we're not gonna rebut or argue, we're taking comments. I see Jenna's making notes, I'm making notes, I don't know if there's other notes being taken down here, but, so we're not gonna get into a debate about comments or refute anybody right now, so.
Yeah, the point I'm making is I would have preferred to have seen input taken at the end of each section. Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, and then some back and forth. I mean, this attempt, or whatever it is, the structure to kind of compartmentalize feedback to the very end suppresses feedback, suppresses input. I mean, these are, as Selectman McCurdy said, the town's goals, not the selectmen's goals.
They're selectmen's goals.
But you're not voted on to be our ruler. You're voted on to be our representative. These are our goals, this is our Littleton. And at this hour, on a hot night, 10 o'clock, 13 pages of content, we're not participating. We're giving you stuff, you're hearing it as kind of just a, look, I said I did public input, I did it. That's not public input, that's not the spirit and intent of public input. It's interaction. I mean,
Keith, what time is our public hearing on the 8th?
7:30.
Okay.
with respect to item 3A, I really echo those that said that the special town meeting ought to be delineated to avoid confusion, which will increase participation. For example, budget reconciliation issues, obviously, the intent of, and the whole reason for the special town meeting makes sense. Anything regarding emergency issues, public safety, the police station is that, the fire station is that, but not every issue is that. Or maybe something whereby there's some special financing, that's a special opportunity that's definitely time sensitive, that the town would be best served now, not later. But that can be defined. It's not anything. And by doing that, I think we can help to solve one of the most unfair issues about town meeting, which is that our seniors are disenfranchised. I mean, these are the people in town who we need at town meeting the most. They have the wisdom. They've seen these town meetings for years and years. We need their participation. I mean, one or two or three of you have said, we need to do more for our seniors. Let's start with getting them involved and allowing them to participate and helping us, because they've got the wisdom we need. And, these things happen at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Many don't, or are uncomfortable, or can't drive at night. We've got to find a solution for that. We need their wisdom in these town meetings, more than anyone. I mean, they know how to help guide us, and it's just unfairly stacked against them. As far as item 6C, what is the status of 15 Great Road? So we know there's mitigation funds. They're tied to performance. They're tied to some extent construction milestones. It's still, there's no activity there whatsoever. It hasn't been that many months, February since it was approved, February 11th, I believe, or so, or a couple weeks thereafter. So can they come before us as Sam Park does regarding the point and give an update soon? That's.
You can ask him that.
And the second part of that, in regard to 60, is Selectman Doucette, you had mentioned 15% as kind of a carve-out of each development moving forward, maybe 5 houses or more. But 15% of 5 isn't 1. So I think there just needs to be some adjustment there, but I think that's a sound concept if we can carve some out of every development moving forward. And finally, 8B, the code of conduct. I mean, I think code of conduct and ethics. This requires a committee. This requires a truly diverse group of citizens to come forward and participate. All due respect, the 5 of you can participate, but it really, you're obviously very much subject to it. We need an external group, we need a committee that is truly diverse in nature. Maybe some folks can come forward with credentials in the field of ethics and compliance, as I do, and others who can participate on that. As a second part of it, in regard to some of the items that Selectman Bronson was suggesting, we really need a residents' bill of rights. We need language that really gets down to what our rights and responsibilities are as residents who come out until 10 o'clock on a hot night in June and participate here. Rules, mutual respect, conduct, we can get into all those issues. But to the letter that was read at the outset of this meeting from Mr. Tarbox, those are all related to residents' bill of rights, and the residents certainly weren't served that evening with the conduct that was observed.
Okay, any other public comment? Yes, sir. Name and address, because I don't know your name, I'm sorry.
Nick Bates House, 28 Birch Road. I've really just one comment with respect to the Shaker Lane School and the sidewalk improvement study, which is that one of the main impediments to people walking to and from Shaker Lane is crossing guards and the absence thereof on Goldsmith in particular.
Okay. Do you know that? Andy?
I got it. Call them.
I think Keith has probably got your beat already.
I'm sure
You
he
got
does.
it? No. Let's see. Can we get Millie to do double duty? Head up there afterwards? Is she done with high school? We'll see. All right. Anybody else? Amy?
Sorry, Amy Charles at Mary McAway. I just wanted to say that I really support a lot of the environmental initiatives that have come up. And I also really support the term limits. I think, one of the things Littleton Community Farm has done is we've adopted term limits for the board of directors because I think it brings new energy and new ideas and diversity into our group. And I think it would just be a nice thing to see along boards and committees in town here. I think, for some of the points, it doesn't make sense for like the 300th committee to have term limits or something like that, because that's such a short-term project. And then additionally, for some of the agricultural land goals, I think it's important to, obviously, there are some very obvious boards and committees that need to be involved, but I would like to remind people that it was actually a group of citizens who kind of, really stood up and said Church Meadows is at risk of being developed, and partnered with the Congregational Church and the Conservation Trust and Littleton Community Farm. And it's the Conservation Trust and Littleton Community Farm people who stood at the transfer station in front of the Donald Supermarket and collected signatures so that we could amend the community preservation fund so we could have the money. It's these groups and these citizens and other volunteers that kind of spread the word about this property to get people to town meeting, to get votes. It was a group of citizens that got together and made a video on YouTube and pushed it out to tell people about how important that glacial soil was. And so I just strongly advocate that the citizens are also involved in those major decisions, because there's potentially up to about 150 acres, more or less, depending on who's selling or who's not selling, that are, as Keith had mentioned at town meeting, it's going to be a lot of big generational choices. So I think it's important for the citizens to be heavily involved as well.
Vera?
Yeah, I want to second the comments.
Should probably have identify yourself. I had this young man.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're
We know you, but
Town Road.
thanks.
I want to second the ideas that people have said with regard to this being a good meeting. I also want to agree with Mr. Simone that having it all come in at the end is not, I don't think, as fair or as useful or makes it as open a discussion as it could be, and kind of puts all you people at the beginning and we're little people at the end. I don't think that's a good idea. So next time that could be different. And one little comment, when I went to get water, I thought that I've often wanted to say, Littleton has wonderful water. Why don't we encourage everybody, the schools, this group, their library, to use town water, not to spend a lot of money on, what, Polar Springs or something like that. A suggestion, a goal perhaps. Thank you.
All right. Well, do we want to go around and adjust or change anything based on public input? Or do we want to take that up at the next meeting and make adjustments at that
I
point?
think once just my opinion would be, once we have the refined, after this first go-around, the public hearing is where we can make those adjustments. That's what we're having a public hearing for.
I just would have one or two very brief comments, not specifically to a point, but more general.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, I think, by allowing this public input, and yes, we can refine it, but I think we all agree, we may not, you call it the selectmen's goals, I call it the community goals, but we probably agree more than we disagree on that. But this whole process of having a goals discussion in the conceptual phase of what those goals are, help us ensure that we're on track. And so I appreciate the fact that we have taken the time for input and in the formation of the goals. And then we can get into further discussion when we refine those goals and adopt them. So I think it's been a good exercise, it's taken a lot of time, but I think it's been a good exercise.
Anybody?
I like the ideas that people sitting on that side of the big desk said. I would like to see them incorporated. I think part of the reason why we had this was so that when we got to the public hearing, people had an opportunity to say, well, wait a second, you excise this goal, but please don't. And I didn't hear anyone say that. I heard everyone say we should be enhancing, and here's more information. And we are so fortunate to have creative thinkers who can, as Mr. McGiver did, tell us about the tree guide, right? We should all be using the tree guide. And I think it's important that we incorporate the ideas suggested by them.
Let's get to it. The reason we had this was because Mr. Clancy was going on vacation next week. That's why we had this today. All right,
Ready for a motion?
I'm ready.
All right, move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule a public hearing on Monday, July 8, 2013, at 7:30 PM on the adoption of proposed goals for fiscal year 2014 identified in the preliminary goal-setting exercise.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to schedule a public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Do you want to edits to give to Keith so he knows what, to take all the notes?
I think I hit all of them.
You've already